Okay, let's call the meeting of the Open Space Advisory Committee to order. It is February 22nd, 2021, 5:30 p.m. Many of us, but not all of us, are in the CR room and the Robert Bob Kroll boardroom, whose memory we cherish. I guess let's have a roll call if we could, please.
Chairperson Scott.
Here.
Vice Chair Welch. Here. Member Evans. Can't really see. Member Inverson. Here. Member Masad.
Here.
Member Martinovich.
Here.
Member Kimbrough. Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. We might kind of listen for Margie in case she joins us here later. Tonight we have public comment after each agenda item, which is the chair's preference for purposes of giving folks in the community particularly, and in the audience, if we had any commenters in the audience, the opportunity to comment as items come up. We have an initial public comment period, and there are a number of things that we wish to cover there. I think we'll start. Ben, did you want to say something? Ben is our Deputy District Attorney who will be representing us tonight.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair. This is Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney, for the record. I just wanted to say hello again to the OSAC Commission. Many of you will remember me from before. There's been some department reassignments, so I will be working with OSAC and Parks and Rec again. And I look forward to seeing so many familiar faces as well as some new faces. And I look forward to working with you. Pardon the cat. Then finally, I just will mention for the record that it appears that Commissioner Evans has joined the meeting. So that's all for me. Thank you very much. And I look forward to working with you all again.
Thank you, Ben. And we certainly view it as a promotion to come back to work with Parks and Rec and Open Space. So other items, and staff, please correct me or add as needed. I'd like to welcome Susan Martinovich as one of our new members. Thank you, Susan. Mark Kimbrough, another new member who has just joined us. He's not a stranger to Open Space, but he's now a full-fledged committee member. So congratulations to both of you. I'd like to recognize the service of Jeremy Hall and Joanne Michael, who are former members, retiring members, I guess, if you will, from the committee, and thank them for their service and recognize that they both made major contributions to open space in Carson City during the time that they were on the committee and in their private lives as well. I believe that Mr. Costello, did you want to say something to us or address the committee at all, or should we just recognize you as the newly promoted?
I can come up if you like.
Sure, we'd like to, you know. We want to know when we get stopped in the field who we're dealing with.
I'll be brief.
Good.
For the record, John Costello. I just wanted to formally introduce myself as Senior Park Ranger for Carson City Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Many of you I've worked with in the past. I've been with the department for 5 years and just recently promoted to Senior Park Ranger in December. So I've been with the department since 2015, and I've worked with many of you, and I look forward to getting to work with all of you, continuing to get to work with all of you. Just so you guys know, we're actually filling a vacant position right now. I've went from 167 candidates for our full-time park ranger position down to 2. So we're in the process now of filling that vacant park ranger position. So the park ranger program will consist of 2 full-time park rangers and senior park ranger. So we're looking forward to moving forward with the park ranger program, having 3 full-time staff on. That's the first time that that's happened since I've been on with the city in 5 years. So we're looking forward to what we can do with 3 full-time employees. So I appreciate you guys having me this evening.
Great, John, very nice to have you with us. Congratulations again. We've enjoyed working with you for the 5 years you've been with Open Space. We know that 80 or 90% of your time belongs to Open Space and not other places. But we would, that was for Jen's benefit. We really appreciate it. You know, Open Space does have a pretty diverse group of properties, and there's a lot of things out there. And unfortunately, I think, there's a need for more, not particularly enforcement, but education, outreach. We've got a really nice ability to help people learn without trying to be given tickets and issuing citations. And so there's a few people that I see every once in a while as I drive home on Deer Run Road that probably need a citation. But for the most part, I think people are really pretty good and open. And we have a outstanding program. People are really proud of it. And you have really helped make that a positive experience, even though you're making contacts in the field on a daily basis. So thank you very much.
I do appreciate that. And just so everybody knows, I know we have some new panel members, but we are generalist rangers, so we do enforcement, maintenance, and interpretive programs. And we always educate first. We think that's kind of the best way to go about things in our approach out in the field. And I know you've seen us many times out in the field, and we look forward to continuing to have OSAC support as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just by way, Mark and Susan particularly, there was some discussion a few years ago about putting the rangers within the sheriff's department, and that was resisted by this committee because we felt that it wasn't just an enforcement position, it was educational, it was interpretation. We need somebody out there to pick up the trash once in a while, much broader than just enforcement. And John came to us initially as a ranger and has done an outstanding job. So we appreciate that. You have to hold it down for a minute.
John, I remember the first time I met you when you came for your interview. Do you remember that day? Yeah. And you were so excited because we were doing the Eagle Valley Trails Committee. What was that? The Eagle Valley? EVTC. And it was our first meeting, public meeting of that. And you got so excited when you saw that. You were really hopeful you would get fired. Hired. Little Freudian slip there. No, I'm so glad that we did hire you. You've been a real asset to the community.
Thank you, Donna. Any other comments or questions for John? John, thank you very much. Okay. We had a couple of items that I would recognize as information that came from an email. They were public comments that were made at previous meetings, but there was some, I think, question about the linkage of them to the minutes from a prior meeting. And if I understand correctly, we simply want to reflect that the public comments of Robin Orloff of Friday, August 14th, and Schifrin Cullen of Friday, June 12th, were intended to be in a previous set of minutes. They will be added to that and it reflected in the public comment for that particular meeting. With that, I believe there was perhaps someone on the phone who wanted to make a public comment. Is that the case, or is it just a listening at this point?
We have 3 callers on the line. Callers, I will unmute you in turn. When you hear the two beeps, if you wish to make a public comment, please introduce yourself. If you choose to wait for another agenda item, then please let us know. So with that, I will unmute the first caller.
Are you there?
Yeah, I have no comment at this time.
Okay, could you introduce yourself, and if you want to make a comment, you can make it at this point, or you can...
Caller, if you don't wish to make comment on at this time, I will move on to the next caller. Okay, I'm going to move on to the second caller.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. This is Dave Bentel by way of introduction. And I just a brief comment at the beginning. I've got a page to comment on, but I got actually stopped by one of the park rangers on Saturday, and they treated me, it was Tyler, and he treated me with the utmost respect. And I agree with what John said, that they do a great job. Okay. So, just that by way of introduction. Now, I'm concerned about the culvert crossing, and that's my main concern. And I would like to personally expose the inlet of the culvert historically installed under the road surface of the original Snyder, now called Golden Eagle Lane. My current intent was to use a post hole digger or similar to locate the culvert inlet, and then either hand excavate or use a backhoe to remove the sediment above the culvert inlet, which is anticipated to be about 3 feet deep. It's probably deeper. Carson City claim they are not responsible for this maintenance, or they are prevented from doing anything to assist because of the requirement not to perform any additional work on Prison Hill with the cultural resource issue. Okay, I believe that's been solved now. The culvert drains stormwater from the Prison Hill staging area located on Golden Eagle Lane. The natural stormwater drainage from off the drainage trailer wash, that's what it's called, is the main drainage for the motorized portion of Prison Hill and susceptible to collection of significant quantities of eroded sediments. This occurrence of sediment containing stormwater was particularly apparent of the staging area was subjected to grading with heavy equipment in summer and fall of 2019 to clear remaining vegetation and form contour berms leading into the off-the-trailer wash, and resulted in sediment blocking the intake of the culvert. This resulted in stormwater flows over the roadway and significant erosion of the road surface and several major potholes. This is still occurring every time a significant flow is generated in off-the-trailer wash. Because Carson City is inviting people to use Golden Eagle Lane to access the staging area, as well as the dirt road extension from the mailbox cluster at the east end of Snyder Avenue up to the Prison Hill kiosk, I believe they are obliged to maintain the road surface and the culvert as an essential safety requirement for the residents of Hobby Horse and Golden Eagle Lane. These same residents...
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
We are in public comment, and we certainly appreciate your comments, but we aren't on an agenda item that addresses, and at this point, we really can't discuss it. If you would like to have an agenda item for a future meeting, or if you would like to meet and go over this with staff, we would invite that. But we're not in a position at this point to have an extensive presentation on a matter that's
This is
not
not
part of the
extensive. I've got
agenda.
another 2 paragraphs to read and I'm done.
Okay, please complete then.
Okay. The same residents have been filling and grading the roadway at the culvert crossing to maintain a semblance of smooth travel at this location, as well as filling and grading the unsurfaced portions of Hobby Horse and Golden Eagle Lane, which Carson City invites vehicles to use to access Golden Eagle open space and Mexican Dam open space. It is understood that the residents do not expect city maintenance of the unsurfaced portions of Hobby Horse and Golden Eagle Lane. That's us. However, they do expect the Prison Hill off-road motorized vehicles users to never use the unsurfaced portion of Hobby Horse and Gold Eden Eagle Land to access the Prison Hill authorized route. This is often not the case, and off-road users are trespassing at least daily on these unpaved roads. And the last point I
Sir,
make
could
is
I
of
get you
equal-
please to close out your comments? That's more than 2 paragraphs. I
No,
would
that
like,
was one paragraph. The next paragraph is coming right now. Of equal or greater significance, the current use of the surface portion of Golden Eagle Lane to access the staging area, the Prison Hill kiosk mentioned in the 3rd paragraph of this text, as well as various tracks leading to the authorized routes on Prison Hill, has resulted in illegal travel along state-owned lands on both the east and the west side of the surface portion of Golden Eagle Lane. At least one individual has crashed into the mailbox cluster, destroying 2 units. Had anyone been present collecting mail, this would have been disastrous and potentially fatal consequences. Okay.
okay, thank you very much for your comments. If you would like to pursue those elements, I would invite you to make an appointment with staff, but we are not in a position where we can discuss that at this point. It's not an
That's fine.
agenda item. So thank you
That's
very
fine,
much
but
for
I've
your
sent
public
it-
comment.
Thank you. I've sent it to you. You guys better take it seriously. Thank you.
That would be fine, thank you. Did we have one more caller?
We do have one more caller.
Okay, thank you.
Caller number 3, I'm going to unmute you when you hear the 2 beeps. If you'd like to make public comment, please introduce yourself.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, this is Robin Orloff. I'm a citizen of Carson City, you all know me. I'd like to welcome our 2 new committee members, and you can hear me, right? You can hear me okay?
yes, we can hear you, Robin.
Yeah, I want you to welcome the 2 new committee members, Susan and Mark, and our new reappointee, Donna, and everyone else. But I missed the first part of the meeting. For some reason, I can't check in. Anyway, I heard John Costello talking. I wanted to say hello and thank you for everything John's done. He and I worked together when he first came on, doing all kinds of litter cleanup on the Hill, and I think by doing so, we set a precedent that the OHVers are continuing, and I'm real pleased with that. I would also agree with Dave's comment about the Ranger Tyler and also August. Always very responsive when I talk to them, call them, courteous to me and the OHVers, and I appreciate that. As you know, my public comments, I appreciate Patty putting them in for this meeting. We kind of got to screw up the last meeting, and I'm thrilled that they're present. They're still relevant, and I hope you'll read them. In regards to your statement about meeting with Dave, perhaps with staff, I would encourage, if there are several of us in the community, non-motorized and neighbors, neither neighbors, we would welcome getting together with you all and maybe having some future agenda items that address the things that I spoke of in my comments. And basically, in summary, I feel like the OHV area, the OHV area needs to have some reconsideration. And the consultants use the 4 E's: educate, engineer, evaluate, and enforce. And I would add to that we need to communicate, cooperate, compromise, commiserate to a certain extent, and creatively come up with some solutions. The property is being trashed, and the Novak plan that you all unanimously voted on has wonderful talk, lofty language, and I think we have to make sure that we're walking the walk. And the only way anyone's going to know that is if you come out and you walk the walk. And I'm happy to bring anyone out there. I've offered it to OSAC, to staff, to city staff, to the Board of Supervisors. I think if we can get together as a city of concerned citizens, we can make this a model environment for OHVs that is sustainable, as we were promised by the Novak, and as we all voted, we were all in agreement with it. But I think we're going to have to work together to make that happen. And right now, there are some really big problems. And I know many of you have had tours with the city, but they've been to the main areas and the main roads. And I've got to say, the staging area is awesome. Open Space has done a great job with it. They've got some fencing. They're slowing down speeds. They've got the tiny top loop. They've got a bathroom. They've got trash cans. Awesome. I can't say enough about that. I look forward to the trails in the heart of the riding area to be equally as representative of what we think this area should be for our town. And in closing, I'd like to say,
excuse me, can you wind up your comments if you would, please? It's been about 3.5
I
minutes.
will.
Thank you.
Okay, and I will. I'd like to just ask if we can get together and have some meetings, include our new people, and really talk about what's going on and address it. I would appreciate that.
Certainly. Staff, if you can find some time to work with Robin and make sure that we have the full background. You know, we have a lot of things on our end that have to be dealt with, Robin, so staff is going in a lot of different directions. But we'll try to do what we can to bring about a meeting and see if there are some things that would be helpful in addressing some of your concerns.
And I appreciate that. It won't just, I think it's important to include Dave and some of the Golden Eagle people, and I think if we do it on the property, on the ground, otherwise sitting around at a table isn't going to do anything.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do we have any other callers on the phone?
We have no more callers at this time.
Thank you. Staff, do we have anything else for the initial public comment?
Oh my goodness, those are hard. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. There is nothing else to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. The next item is agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes. This was the Park and Recreation Committee joint meeting with Open Space back in December. I was not here, but I do have, are there any comments, suggestions, corrections for the minutes? I would note that in a couple places, the Parks and Recreation Committee Vice Chairman, Kurt Meyer, has an S on his name. And that probably, if it hasn't been an item, it may want to be cleaned up because it's M-E-Y-E-R, no S. Hardly a substantial comment. If hearing no comments, is there a motion for approval of the draft minutes for the December 1st, 2020 meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes to the, whatever the date was.
Thank you, Donna. December 1st, 2020, joint meeting.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye,
That's Margie. Jerry, how about you?
that's Margie.
Good. Did we hear from Jerry?
Hope so. I voted aye.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain since I was not at the meeting.
Okay, and I did not vote either for that same reason. Not that I don't have opinions, but I think I missed the meeting, and so I really am not a good judge of what happened. I'd probably forget anyway after a couple of months, but anyway, we have, the motion passes then with 2 abstentions. Okay. Item number 5, discussion possible action regarding the election of a chair and vice chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee for 2021 calendar year. I am going to defer this until later in the meeting. The reason is that I will not be a candidate for consideration of that position, the position of chair, which I have held with the committee's support for some time. But at this point, I'd like to defer that till later in the meeting and go forward with the rest of the agenda. We do have a public comment note. Is there any public comment on that particular deferment? We will obviously have public comment when it comes back for action.
We do have two callers on the line. Callers, I will unmute you in turn, and if you choose to make a comment, please introduce yourself.
Hello, this is Rod Bratch. I live on Golden Eagle. I don't have any comment on this. Find the later agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Second caller, I will unmute you. Caller, do you wish to make a public comment?
I guess that's the bookend to Ben. A dog and a cat.
We have no more callers.
Thank you very much. Okay. A little levity is always good. Okay, next we have the rather extensive staff report on agenda item number 6, which is discussion and possible recommendation to staff regarding the use of approximately $33,275 from the Quality of Life Open Space Fund to serve as an additional portion of the required 5% local match to a federal lands access program grant. Total cost approximately $5.3 million for the trailhead roadway improvements in Kings Canyon and review of the updated 95% conceptual design plans. And those plans were included in our packet. There's a lot of history on this for the benefit of Mark and Susan. This is a flap grant that is going to result in a substantial improvement to Kings Canyon Road and a substantial trailhead at the top of Kings Canyon. So it's been before us before. It's a bit of an awkward process because the design is coming out of Denver. City staff has worked closely with the designers and the Forest Service. We've been involved at several different levels. We've made recommendations. Many of those recommendations, as noted in the staff report, have been incorporated into the plan. And with that, Greg or Lindsay, which one of you wants to take the lead in this one?
I'll go ahead and take the lead. So for the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for Carson City. So the item that you have before you, as Bruce gave good background on this, is for the Federal Lands Access Program grant that we have been working on in coordination and partnership with Carson City Public Works Department. And we do have staff from Public Works on the line as well if there's any specific project questions that come up. But this project has been in the planning stages since 2017. In 2018, we came before the committee and requested allocation of approximately $35,000 in matching funds that would come from the Quality of Life account that would contribute towards the 5% local match that is required for this grant project. So originally, at that time, the project cost estimate was approximately $3.7 million. Now that we've gotten a little bit farther in the design process, overall costs for the project have increased to approximately $5.3 million. I think in some recent meetings with Central Federal Lands, it came down just a little bit from that, but still at that $5 million range. And so with that, Central Federal Lands is able to contribute additional funding for the overall project, but it does increase the 5% local match that we're required to provide. So working with Public Works staff, we crunched the numbers a little bit and we identified kind of the portion of the project that is specific to the trailhead specifically and kind of the portion that open space has the most interest in. And based on that is how we came up with the additional approximately $33,000 that we would be requesting to allocate and match. And I will mention that both the RTC as well as Stormwater will be providing additional match as well, so it's not just us. Some reasons for those increased costs, a lot of it just came down to the fact that we're at 95% design plans now. There was some information specifically around the excavation and how much excavation would really be required for the trailhead. Once they got the design a little bit more hammered out, they identified some additional costs there. Additionally, as Bruce noted, we've been working on this project for some time, and there was a lot of public comment from the committee, comment from RTC and others as well, related to the design. And all of those comments have since been incorporated and changed in the design as well. And so some of that did lead to some increased costs just with revisiting the design and incorporating in some of those comments that we had. So based on that, we are requesting approximately 33,000 more for kind of a total of approximately 68,000, which is representative of the piece of the pie that is the trailhead. Greg, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that was a good synopsis.
Perfect, thank you. So based on that, as I mentioned, we have staff from Public Works on the line as well if there's any specific questions. So at this time, we'll turn it over to the committee.
Okay, we're not going to let Lucia off without saying something. Did you have any comments? We've been through a lot here, Lucia, and I'm really pleased the way it's come around. Did you have anything to add, or is there anything that the committee needs to hear from your perspective?
Oh, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. This project represents such a fantastic partnership between the Parks and Open Space Department and Public Works. It really represents kind of the hallmark of where our two departments can go to leverage funding and to really serve our community in a meaningful way. And so, coming back for more money is always something we try to avoid as staff. In this case, with this funding source being 95% federal share, we really are getting a tremendous benefit to some long-standing issues up there on King Street. And so, we wouldn't be coming back as staff if we didn't really believe that this was a tremendous project. And I really appreciate your consideration of this funding.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to make sure we're taking care of our neighbors up there. We've got a couple of neighbors at the upper part that have really paid the price for their their location prior to the popularity of the trailhead. And I think the revised plans, as I look at them, I think are going to be really a big improvement. And we had quite a bit of history and background on this. This is the second flap grant we've had in Carson. Sierra Vista Way was the first one. We got lots of potential for open space to continue to partner with those 95% dollars that you can get, Lucia, so keep going. Board members, comments, questions, anything for Public Works or for open space staff? Yes, Mark.
Okay, there's Gold Green. Hi, Lucia. I miss RTC, huh? Hey, first of all, I want to say this relationship with Lucia and the staff over there is phenomenal, and the rewards have been huge for this community. And one thing you learn if you're in recreation is that the transportation side of funding is always much more than the recreational side. So anytime you can get the transportation side, like a flap grant, to be part of a project, it's a win-win for everybody. Each year, the Sierra Front puts together a trail training every year. And last year, we gave awards to Lucia and Dirk for the work that they've done with flap grants, because it's huge. We're talking millions here, which open space that's just way out of the scale of anything we could ever do. So we gave them an award for that support. It's a perfect relationship. And I have nothing but the best of support and understanding. And hopefully we can find another federal land that needs access for a flap grant. And I have to tell you that it was Dirk plays a big role in this, and it had a lot to do with his initiative. Nobody told him to go look for these flap grants. It was his own decided, to go out and do this. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And Lucia's leadership has made sure it's worked smoothly. And let me tell you, Dirk, on Sierra Vista and Kings Canyon, they are not easy work projects. A lot of public comments, and Susan understands that. Anytime you put roadways into communities, and she understands transportation has lots of money too. So I just wanted to make those comments to reinforce that. And then I had another comment, a simple one, just to catch up for the plan. One of the things that happened when I was up there involved with that trail, equestrians like to come and use that roadway that goes all the way up in the backcountry. So we had to push a little access around the gate so that the horses could get around the gate and use the road. So I didn't see that in the plan. It looked like it was pretty tight. So it's just a note, because there's going to be a couple neighbors that ride their horses right up there and like to go in the backcountry, that they need to get in somehow, which creates a problem because then the OHVs can sneak in there too. But just something to deal with in the future that I think is going to come your way that I didn't see in the plan. And other than that, thank you. It's nice to see you, Lucia.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any other comments from committee members? Yes, Susan.
Thank you. This is an exciting project. I've seen it indirectly and listened to a lot of the discussions. So I truly believe that people are going to be up there anyways, and so why not help them be up there in an organized manner? Mark was right when he said money, and that's a little bit where my mind goes. And I'm still reading all the information. Lindsay, thank you for that 5-10-inch binder. It grows every night when I'm looking at it. So I'm still getting up to speed, and so if this is reiteration, forgive me. From what I understand, there was a portion of the match that was the $35,000, and that was already encumbered and budgeted in fiscal year 21. And so what you're asking for is 33,275 or 6 to be for fiscal year 22. And I know that one of our items on our budget, or on number 9, our coming up items, we'll talk more about it, but just a question. The undesignated funding that was in the fiscal year 21 budget that was listed in our information, did that include already the money that's been encumbered?
I will get this right soon, I promise. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So great question. Yes, so the 35,000 has already been allocated and encumbered, and that came out of that undesignated line item in the previous fiscal year. And so we basically are proposing to do the same thing here with this 33,000 is, earmark that from the undesignated line item and go ahead and encumber that in fiscal year 22.
Excellent, thank you. That answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Susan. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, let's ask for public comment.
We do have our 2 callers on the line. Callers, when you hear the 2 beeps, it'll be your turn for public comment.
No comment at this time.
Thank you.
Moving on to the second caller. Caller, do you wish to make a comment? No further public comment.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion from the committee, or do we have a motion?
To, let me get this right. Allocate, I just put my thing away, so sorry. I move to fund for staff to use approximately $33,275 from the Quality of Life Fund to serve as an additional portion of the required 5% match for the Federal Lands Access Program grant for the Trailway Road improvements in Kings Canyon.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Donna. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Margie. Jerry, did we hear you?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, great. I'm glad to see that one moving along. Lucia, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to going up there and giving the contractor a hard time, or giving staff a hard time in the field, or somehow continuing our appreciation of the work you're doing for the benefit of open space in our trailhead. So thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All the credit goes to the staff.
Great. And be sure and tell Dirk we appreciate his hanging in there. Okay. Item number 7, discussion and possible action regarding a presentation to the Board of Supervisors of the 2020 Annual Report of Activities of the Open Space Advisory Committee. And you know, when I looked at this, it really is impressive. And it's something that I think we are really proud of and should be proud of here in Carson City. Lindsay, did you want to address this? Great.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item before you, just a little background in the Carson City Municipal Code. There is a requirement that the Open Space Advisory Committee bring a report of our activities and accomplishments to the Board of Supervisors every year. So this annual report is in service to that goal. And after we're done here today, we will follow up by bringing this item to the board as a presentation as well. So this year with the annual report, I tried really hard to keep it under, 15 pages, which is kind of what the historic page count has been, but I still didn't quite accomplish that. So this is 11 pages worth of accomplishments by a very small staff that we had in 2020. We were understaffed for the entire year. It was just myself as the open space manager and Greg Berggren as our trails coordinator and Jared Whitaker as our open space maintenance coordinator, couple seasonals, and that was it. So we were able to get a lot done with a very limited staff. I did play around with the kind of the overall look of the report this year. I added a section both for our new members as well as for our new Board of Supervisors members. So I did add a history of open space, a history of open space section. I thought that was important for everyone, including the public, to be reminded how it is that we got to this place and having such a unique and special program here in Carson City that literally no other county in Nevada has been able to accomplish quite the same type of program. I had a really fun time creating this graph, just illustrating and highlighting the history of open space acquisition through time and just seeing those acreages go up, especially in 2015 when we acquired those lands from the BLM through the Omnibus Public Lands Management Act. So very exciting to just highlight this program. Other big sections that I really tried to highlight. So, of course, 2020 was a challenging year for every human on the planet, but certainly brought some challenges for our department, especially. I think in March 2020 when the pandemic hit and we started seeing rolling closures and just a change to our overall way of life, a lot of people sought refuge and solace in open space and in trails and natural areas. I know that, we were all in that same boat. And so we just saw huge increases in the amount of people who were using our trailheads. We got to a point where, typically low visited trailheads, were packed with cars on a consistent basis. And so that presented a big challenge to address in a relatively short amount of time. So things that we needed to implement in 2020 included, more oversight at our locations. As we were having issues, we needed to adapt to them more quickly. We put out a lot more signage in 2020, which I think was a really big accomplishment. With just having so many new people out and about, we wanted to make it easier to navigate our trail system as well as make rules and regulations more clear. So that was a big push for us. Of course, we also had to make sure that things were cleanly and that we were adhering to those standards as well to keep the public safe as they were recreating in our facilities. So a lot of challenges really quick, but we also had all of the usual challenges that we deal with. So things like noxious weeds and revegetation projects, and the Prison Hill OHV area remains to be an area where we spend a lot of time managing. So, in addition to those increased uses, we also had all of our usual things that we manage and deal with on a day-to-day basis, and I think we were able to handle those challenges pretty well, all things considered. Another kind of big thing that I wanted to highlight in this year's annual report is I added a trail use in 2020 section, with the help of Greg. But, as I just mentioned, trails were some of our biggest accomplishments in 2020. That's where we spent a lot of our time. And we also had, fortuitously, a couple projects come to fruition in 2020 as well. One thing that we want to highlight is we're working on kind of a share the trail messaging campaign to help get trail etiquette messaging across to our various users, especially as we're getting new people out on the trail who maybe have are not as experienced with trail etiquette and things like that. So the Go Slow and Say Hello campaign is something that we're actively working on, and working on some videos and some education material to really highlight the importance of, when you're in a mixed use scenario and there's bikes and hikers and equestrians, just the importance of slowing down and saying hello and acknowledging the other users on the trail, so that you're making sure that everyone is safe and being able to recreate in the best way possible. Another thing that was that I'd like to highlight is in 2020, we were able to make the dedication of Bob's Trail. So this was a segment of trail up in the Eagle View open space area that we were able to work with Muscle Power to create and dedicate that to Mayor Bob Crowell prior to his passing. And I know that was something that was really meaningful for both him as well as staff. So we were really proud that we were able to do that, and that Mayor Bob's legacy will live on in a variety of ways, but, we have this place we can go visit him and think of him. Other exciting things that happened in 2020 that I'd like to highlight is we completed the Carson River Trail System Phase 2, so those ranch connection trails that are along the east side of Prison Hill, as well as through Silver Saddle Ranch and along the river at Buzzy's Ranch. This was a huge project, a $1.8 million grant funded through the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. This is one of the largest grants our department's ever received. Super exciting project to be a part of. The trail is awesome. I think before we were even finished building it, there was tons of people using it. And now we see a lot of people out there utilizing it on a daily basis. So folks are really excited, and we're excited for them. It's a really great addition to our trail system. I did gloss over, but want to acknowledge the grant funding section. So this is a standing in section that we have every year that just highlights the different grant funds that we're either an identified partner on or have been awarded to us specifically. And the total for these grants come to almost $8.2 million. So that's a lot of funding that we're able to leverage on top of the quality of life Q18 monies that we receive every year. So we are very thankful for those partnerships and the amazing projects that we get out of them. Other things to highlight, so the Mexican Dam safe passage project was ongoing through 2020, and that was a project to improve the inlet that goes over the Mexican ditch at the Mexican Dam. So with the improvements that we've done there, now folks can safely go across that, by carrying their kayak or on foot or as an equestrian. So before that was basically the stopping point for that trail, the Mexican Ditch Trail. Now, in conjunction with Muscle Powered, we did a little trail work out there, and you can now continue on the trail past that inlet. And we're working on a future grant or future project with Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District to create a little takeout just above the dam there so that people will be able to portage around it and extend the Carson City Aquatic Trail as well. And just the last thing I wanted to highlight, of course, 2020, we were not able to hold many activities or events, but our department was still able to figure out a way to engage with the public during a global pandemic. So we did that a lot through virtual activities. We spent a lot of time putting together educational videos, either highlighting different, trail etiquette pieces or highlighting new trail areas. We talked about noxious weeds, kind of all kinds of things that we thought the public might be interested in. But that was kind of our way to continue engaging with the public, even during a time when we couldn't meet in person. I also want to highlight the amount of time and efforting that we were able to get from volunteers this year, again, during a global pandemic. A good portion of this comes from Muscle Powered, but we also have other volunteers who have adopted our trail and do cleanups and things like that as well. But in 2020, we had approximately 2,600 hours of volunteer time on the lands throughout open space. And that equates to almost or just about $72,000 in time and money that we got from those individuals. So we're super appreciative of our volunteer partnerships and all the help that we get out there. And the next page just kind of shows a breakdown of those different volunteer opportunities. So I think that more or less covers everything. Greg, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I'll wait for the Trails staff report.
Okay, comments or questions from the committee? Yep, go ahead, Donna.
Great report. It's fantastic that you got so much done with COVID and everything else, and the new trails are fantastic. But I do want to say, I decided to go out and do the loop. I did Riverview Park, Buzzy's Ranch to Carson River Park, and the short connector over to Red House. And I do have to say, when you get to the yard of Red House, there's no signage showing how to then get to the connector trail, the new Mexican Ditch connector trail. And when you come back from that over the bridge, how to keep going on the Mexican Ditch Trail, which there's never been a sign there. I got there and there's all these people milling around in the yard. I became the traffic cop. No, you go this way. There were people going down the little connector road to get out to Carson River Road. And so I'm directing traffic. So that you need two signs. When you come off the Mexican Ditch new connector off the bridge there, how to continue on the Mexican Ditch Trail to the dam. And when you come off the short one from the Carson River Park, how to find the connector. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, for the
otherwise, it's beautiful.
For the record, Greg Berger and Trails Coordinator. Yeah, thank you, Donna. We keep hearing from people of where we need wayfinding signage, and we keep adding wayfinding signage. So it's definitely on our agenda, and I'll note that one, and we'll get that one taken care of as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
We still have some money left in the Caesars Fund. I don't know if you've already earmarked all of that for Ash Canyon. I know you're planning some more kiosk signs over there, but if there's any left, maybe we can move some over for a couple of little signs.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Donna. Mark?
There we go, Green. I actually, when I met with Lindsay on my tour the other day, I had read this, and I was totally impressed with how the wonderful writing style, it's more personal rather than I did A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G. It's got pictures, and I love the pictures, but I think you need, on your name tag, are you gonna have poop fairies on your name tag now too? That was a highlight of my reading, was to see you in that outfit you have on. But it shows a personality with your job, and people picture a face, and it makes it a much more attractive, friendly thing that they'll read rather than A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So I was really impressed and really like that. And I really think the headline of this story, and I have been involved with National Trail sessions and many conferences, and I highly, not highly, the headline is this, that this community has put together such a program and hired the perfect staff to do the job. Absolutely nailed it. And it's nothing but anything we can brag to any other community. You have a full-time trail coordinator. The Chwabi National Forest, with its millions of acres, doesn't have one trail coordinator. I've learned that in bad situations, darn it, they need one. So that's the headline, and I always should be upfront. I really think that it's just phenomenal. This community does it, and the reward that it comes back, those dollars you spend. And I think maybe when you think about it in the future, look at the old plans and see what's been done. It's been phenomenal. It's gone right down the road, and it shows planning's extremely effective and important. And the river all kind of started this when CRAC was formed, and we had 1 million people show up angry about parks and rec and access, and it all calmed the waters and moved this all forward, a lot of it, the open space plan. But I think you just need to let the politicians know, and that's what you're doing. These are voted members, and there might be a few that we might be able to convince a little bit more about the program. Some are in support, but that's politics. And I think you've captured it with your pictures and your drawings, and I really respect that and think you're doing a wonderful job, all of you guys, and thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Other comments from the board? Susan?
I just want to echo what's been said. This is incredible, and it's a jewel to really see what has been done in the last little bit. I was really pleased to see the sheep because I live right there, and they're so fun. But there were parts, and just in learning, and I'm interested, and I think that this is a great story to tell for others. Where is your money going? We're explaining the why. Why are we collecting the sales tax, and that it's bringing value? So if there's a way not just to give this to the Board of Supervisors, but to really showcase it, I think that would just help let people know the incredible job that everyone's doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? If it's short. I know, that's
Sorry,
why I said it.
That's the program you brought when they brought me in here. That was one of the comments I was going to make. I've been involved with nonprofits and trail groups for years. And this is your case statement, they call it, the elevator pitch or the ski lift pitch, that you're telling somebody that's new to your program what's most important in just a short few paragraphs of what you do. And that brings money to the nonprofit. But what you want is notice to the community that their tax dollars are well spent. So it's the same as a nonprofit. And Susan nailed it right there. This is a much bigger piece than just sending it to the park to the supervisors. So thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Mark. You only get one short one, too.
A few years ago, I started working with Ann Bollinger. We tried to do, and I'd really like to see more work done on it, on the website for each trail, park, and everything else. If we could add into that a description of this trail was built with so much grant money with this little bit of match, and show how much of the little bit we get in tax money is used to bring in grant money. I think that would really be of value, because then people could see that right there on the website.
I think, to me, that's a good idea. And it also allows our grantors to get some recognition on the ground. So I did have one question. With regard to the poop fairies, do you discriminate against men, or do you simply not advertise their presence on that group?
Oh, we're a fully all opportunities poop fairy ring. we'd gladly accept individuals of all genders on our team.
Well, that's good to know. It just doesn't come across clearly that you're not a segregated group in the picture.
We sure do.
Yeah. I need a tutu like a hole in the head. Okay, any other comments from the committee?
I'll, if I may, I'll just mention on the website piece, Donna, we are working with Dan Earp, our recreation superintendent, to update our whole website. There will be a bit of an overhaul that's going on in the next few months, and improving and updating that content is part of that exercise. So.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. It's a very nice report, and as everyone has said, very impressive. We'll call now for public comment.
Excuse me? I'm not public. Could I still say
Margie,
something?
I'm sorry. Please go
I don't
ahead.
know how to check in or go out, but I wanted to thank the open space staff. They must get discouraged from time to time, and yet they are mighty. So thank you very much, Lindsay and Greg and Lance, for all you do.
Thank you, Margie. Just don't check out on us. Any other committee comments before we go to public comment? Okay. Don't let me cut you off again. Let's go to public comment.
We do have 3 callers on the line. Callers, when you hear the 2 beeps, it will be your turn for public comment. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, this is Ron Branch, a Golden Eagle resident. I have some comments on signage and things, and I don't know if this is the exact place I need to address. I might need some guidance, but between the McCarahan Bridge and the Mexican Dam, this is the worst duck hunting season we've had with people shooting on the river, and it's city county ordinance that there is no shooting within that area for a mile off the river. So that has brought extra concern because of the shotgun blast. And then in the summertime, the high risks of fire in this last summer, I guess people have a lot more time on their hands, is probably one of the worst. And I'd like to probably meet with Greg to see if there's any place, or if it's Parks and Recs, because it's on the BLM side. It's on the east side of the river by my house. So there needs to be signage where the OHV drops into the river, because I believe a lot of people from Douglas County who don't know the ordinances of Carson City are probably violating by shooting. And I'd hate to see all of those cottonwoods go up in flames, because there is going to be a lot to look at through the summer if those trees are not in existence in the area. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rob. I would encourage you to catch up with staff on that, and if need be, that could be a future agenda item if there's a reason to have it. But it sounds like being aware of it and maybe having our rangers aware of it might be helpful. But if you can talk to Rob when he gets hold of you, that'd be great. Next public
That'd be
comment.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second caller, when you hear the 2 beeps, it will be your turn for public comment. Caller, do you wish to make public comment? Moving on to the next caller. Caller, when you hear the 2 beeps, you're up for public comment.
Hello, Robin Orloff again. Am I allowed to make another comment
Yes.
on a different subject
Go ahead.
related to the agenda item?
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As a segue to Ron, there's also been some shooting issues, of course, as you all know, at the staging area, and we've had some discussion if we can declare that at some point as a place of public resort. There was a guy out there with a like machine gun, air rifle looking thing. Anyway, but that's separate. I wanted to thank Lindsay and Greg also, and to for all the work they've done. I do appreciate all the open space in this area. I moved down here from Lake Tahoe, because I value the open space down here. And my husband's a dirt biker, and he enjoys not only the Prison Hill, but he goes all around the area. So I do want to second everybody's compliments. And I would please, I have a plea for all of you. I think most of us are non-OHVers in general, and maybe that's why we're not paying a lot of attention to the OHV area in South Prison Hill. But I've got to tell you, it's a beautiful area. It's very unique to Carson City. Granite, it's got washes. It's like nothing you have ever seen in Carson City. If you haven't been down there, I would highly recommend that you go, and that's why I'm so passionate about speaking about it. Lindsay mentioned all the signage that was being done all over town, and I'm very aware of that. Great job. You're all, you know, how other people talk about how important it is to have trails signed, but I've got to say, please look at the interim map. Greg can guide you to the interim map that is on Prison Hill. It was released on March 11th. It is a map. It has been published. It's been on websites. It's in paper. It's posted at the OHV area, and it sends trails into every single corner of Prison Hill, and there are no attendant signs showing people where to go, except in the main staging area and some of the main areas. But in the heart of the area, the whole east side sagebrush step that goes down to the river,
Robin, we're off the subject here. That's
Okay.
not
Well,
an agenda item.
Okay, well, I'd like to address the idea of signage, and I hope that we can get signage in this area like we've done everywhere else. You know, we have $500,000 worth of money to do that, and the signs are all ready to go. So I'm just encouraging that to go along with everything else that you've done in our other open space areas, which are appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other folks on the phone?
We have no more callers.
Okay, thank you. Last call for any comments or questions from staff, or are we ready for a motion? Okay, Mark?
I move to approve the 2020 Annual Report of Activities of the Open Space Advisory Committee to be presented to the Board of Supervisors.
We have a motion for approval of the report and presentation. Do we have a second? Thank you. Alan seconds that. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, everybody is an aye. Thank you very much. Next agenda item, discussion and possible action regarding the open space work plan for fiscal year 2021-2022. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for the record. So we can't discuss all of the things that we did in 2020 without also talking about all the things that we plan to do in the coming year. So what you have before you is the Open Space Program for fiscal year 2021-2022. I will highlight some specific areas that I think will be important, or it's all important, but I'll highlight some specific projects and then take any questions on any of the other items from members of the committee. So starting right off the bat under capital improvement projects, two big projects that are going to be implemented in the summer of 2021 is the Kings Canyon Dirt Road project. So this is a project in partnership with the Nevada Off-Highway Vehicle Commission, as well as the Recreational Trails Program. We receive funding from both of those entities through the years to fund the design and actual repair of the dirt road portion of Kings Canyon Road, only for a portion of it. So from pavement end right there at the waterfall or Kings Canyon Trailhead to approximately 2.5 miles up the road. The road's been in disrepair since 2017 when we got those heavy rainfall and floods, and so we have finally gotten to the point where we are ready to move forward with implementation. So this summer, we will be using the $142,000 from the Recreational Trails Program to complete construction on that road. We'll be redoing the culvert, fixing the drainage, doing some overall grading, things like that will just improve that road dramatically. The goal isn't to make it passable by just your average passenger car. It is still meant to be a high clearance vehicle road, or accessible by pedestrians, equestrians, bicyclists, but it will improve safety for those who are capable to travel on that road, as well as for emergency access, which is important as well. So we're anticipating, as I mentioned, that will be summer 2021. Kind of concurrently, as we've already discussed this evening, the Kings Canyon Trailhead Project as a component of the FLAP grant. That also will be moving forward with construction this year. We're trying to figure out exactly how that will come into play with the other project. We're thinking that the dirt road will most likely go first, and then we'll follow up by completing the trailhead portion as well as improvements to King Street itself. But we're still not quite sure on the timing, but summer 2021 for both of those. Other things I'd like to highlight, so the Lincoln Bypass Trail in coordination with Muscle Powered and the Recreational Trails Program. We will be working with them to construct 2 new miles of the Lincoln Bypass Trail in 2021, which is very exciting. That's been another long time coming project. Another thing that I'd like to highlight trail-wise, so in 2020, we did apply for funding through the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act to design and construct a non-motorized multi-use trail on the west side of Prison Hill around the Coons Lane trailhead, as well as to make some improvements to that trailhead. Notice of funding will be released in September 2021, but that project was ranked very high, and we are fairly confident that it'll be awarded. So we're very excited for that as well. Other things that I'd like to highlight. So under management activities out at Silver Saddle Ranch, staff have been in the process for several years to develop a preservation plan for the structures, so for the historic buildings out at Silver Saddle Ranch. We did get that reviewed and approved by the State Historic Preservation Office, and we're ready to start implementing some of the recommendations that were identified in that plan. So just doing some work to maintain the buildings out there and keep them in the state that they're in and not allow for further degradation of those resources. Other big things that will happen in this fiscal year. So we've talked a bit about the Prison Hill Motorized Recreation Area tonight. We were in the process of getting the Section 106 cultural clearances for that site completed. It took approximately a year to get those pushed through the State Historic Preservation Office, but we have since received concurrence on that report, and we're ready to move forward with implementing all kinds of things on that site. So in 2021, folks can expect to see construction of new trails, more erosion control measures, road decommissioning of routes that we no longer want people to travel on, and lots of sign and fence installation. So there will definitely be a lot of changes on the ground out there, but hopefully all changes for the better. We continue to partner with the Nevada Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council. NOVAC, yes. It's a mouthful. So they've been a great partner, and they're going to assist us through this next chapter of actually implementing all the great planning work that we've done out there. Other exciting things, in conjunction with Carson Water Subconservancy District and the Rec Trails Program, we will be working with them to enhance the Carson River Aquatic Trail. So I mentioned this earlier, that will include completing a takeout location above the Mexican Dam that will allow folks to, portage their kayaks and things around the dam and effectively extend the amount of the aquatic trail that's currently navigable. So that's super exciting, and is also a tri-county project that those kinds of improvements, the signage and extending the trail, those will be done in Douglas County as well as Lyon. So we're definitely going to be improving the ability to float and enjoy the Carson River. We will be continuing with the fuel reduction using sheep program this year. So this will be the 15th year that we've been implementing this project in Carson City, which is very exciting. So that will just be one more project on the docket this year. You can expect the sheep to arrive in the beginning of April. And just a few more items I'd like to highlight. I think just one more, under planning activities and reports. We will be completing a lot of Section 106 cultural review on a variety of open space properties in 2021, so that we can move forward with implementing projects out there. So the west side of Prison Hill in the Clearview and Kuntz area, that's a huge priority. Some work at Silver Saddle Ranch, and then continuing to plug away at some of our other properties where we don't have clearances, such as Ambrose. But Prison Hill remains the big priority for getting those clearances so that we can go ahead and do maintenance and new work out there. So with that, I didn't cover all the items in this list, but would certainly take any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Lindsay. Greg, did you have anything to add?
No, great job, Lindsay.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the staff, from the committee for staff? We'll start with Donna.
This is Margie.
Margie, you're first. Go ahead.
Am I? Okay. I have 3 questions and I was scared I was going to forget them. So the first one I wanted to ask about, where is the put in going to be for the Douglas part of the aquatic trail?
This is Greg, for the record, Trails Coordinator. So I can address that question. The Douglas County, in fact, I just talked to Shane with CWSD today, and they're in conversations with the Nature Conservancy at the River Fork Ranch for a possible put in there. The other location that they've looked at is, of course, Cradlebar Bridge, but that's a little bit problematic because of the highway being so close. So a more ideal location would definitely be River Fork Ranch. And so we're hoping that sometime in the next year, we'll be able to make that happen. One of the things that's going to be kind of cool with the grant that they have for extending that aquatic trail is we're gonna come up with a consistent system of signage throughout the entire length of the trail, and we'll probably wind up using Carson City's or borrowing from Carson City's signage master plan for that. So it'll look very consistent as it comes to Carson City as well.
Thank you. Number 2, Margie.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, number 2 question. What do the desert pigs do?
I guess I'll take that one as well. So not really familiar with them, but they're, I believe, a Lyon County volunteer organization, and they do a lot of cleanups in OHV areas in Lyon County, and they have helped us out on at least one project that we had last winter, which was a cleanup off of Sierra Vista Lane, and they're quite active, and they seem like a really good group of people.
Great.
They must have a sense of humor with a good name like that. Okay, now to my final question concern. One of the things that I really want to honor Jeremy, our former member, he was very, very interested in getting names for all of our open space properties. And I don't know where that fits in your work plan for 2021, but can we please keep it a priority?
Thank you, Margie, for bringing that up. Yes, that's actually something that that I should have included in this work plan. But the reason why I didn't, I guess, is because it was on my radar to bring to the next meeting. I was hoping to aim for April to bring that back to the committee. So it was already something that I was planning on revisiting, which is maybe why I didn't think of it. But I appreciate you making that note. And that's something that we definitely want to make a priority as well. It's just been a challenge with, everything going on over the last year. But I think we'll be fully staffed here soon, and we'll be able to finally revisit that. And we have a lot of the legwork completed already with the Washoe Tribe and some of the recommendations that they had. So we definitely can move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good point, Margie. That one's been on the radar for a while, so be good to get that one tied up.
I don't have Jeremy's expertise, but I'm happy to help if necessary to make that happen.
Great. Thank you. Anything else?
Nothing for me. I'm done.
Okay.
Well, for a minute.
Donna, let's go back to you.
Okay, I can elaborate on the desert pigs because I've worked with them quite a bit. They actually now have a Carson City chapter of the desert pigs, and they are an OHV group, and they focus on mostly desert, BLM type land, and they do extensive cleanups. And they like working with Muscle Powered. They actually contacted me as trash mob coordinator for Muscle Powered about working more with us. But I am going to be stepping down as trash mob coordinator. We have someone who's going to step into that role, so we will not be eliminating that role. But anyway, yes, desert pigs, they're a lot of fun to work with. They're characters. What I wanted to, it's not on this one. I think I saw it mentioned someplace else, but what about Horse Creek Ranch? Did that change hands, and who is the new owner, and how are they working with us?
Excellent question. So yes, Horse Creek Ranch did sell. The name of the individual is escaping me right now, but as the sale process was underway with Michael Fagan, he made sure that during that whole time he was communicating everything that they needed to know as it related to the conservation easement and the restrictions on the property. And the individual who's purchased it, I haven't met them specifically, but because they live abroad. But they do have a sort of ranch manager individual that I've met. Staff have been out this year to do the routine monitoring. We'll be bringing that report to the committee likely in April. We just didn't have a chance to fit it in on this agenda. But so far, everything is working really well out there. They seem to be very conservation minded and are actually very excited by the fact that it's under a conservation easement. They want to leave it as is. They've already been in contact with Nevada Division of Forestry to pick up some of those partnerships as it relates to forest stewardship and things like that. They do intend to build a structure on the property, but all within the allowable building envelopes that were originally agreed upon as it relates to the conservation easement. So when they do move forward with that, that'll come before the committee as well, just to keep you guys in the loop. But so far, things seem to be working really well.
And follow up, once COVID is finally conquered, will we still be able to do our annual thistle pulls?
Yes, when I met with the ranch manager, I did mention that that was something we did in the past, and he was very eager to continue with that partnership as well.
I'm sure with not doing it last year, it must be really bad.
Yeah, you lose traction with those weed populations pretty quickly.
The name of the gentleman, I think, is Holucci.
Thank you.
Frank
Huchuli or something like that.
Huchuli.
Yeah, thank you.
And I was involved with Mr. Fagan in the transition, and he was very, very good about clarifying and reinforcing the requirements and the commitments under the conservation easement. And I've had some ongoing coordination with Mr. Hochuli, I think it is, because we did the transfer of water rights that came with that property. And in my conversations with him, he's very, as Lindsay said, he's very interested in the property. He's very interested in the maintenance of it. And I do think that, just as a general work plan comment, the whole issue of weed control is something we don't want to lose sight of, not just at Horse Creek Ranch, but we've had funding problems, and I think that's something that we really ought to try to see what we can do to make sure it doesn't get any further ahead of us, because it's the weeds are a problem in a number of areas. Donna, anything else you had?
No, that was.
Mark, did you have a comment?
There it goes. First, I just congratulate you on your proactive program for grants, because grants aren't free. They don't generate any work, right? So grants bring a lot of work on you, but you guys are very proactive, and that's just great. And just for you to bring this out once a year, it takes a lot of time to do this, but it's really important to show what you're doing and where you're going. And your in basket has got to be pretty full. So just a comment to that for being proactive. And I don't think people understand that you don't have to apply for these grants. You guys do it on you hear and you go and pursue them. Nobody's telling you to do that most of the time. So thank you for that. And the other comment I was going to make, when we talk, there's a section here on Silver Saddle, and when I was sitting down with Lindsay the other day, I was involved with the charrette that brought probably the most qualified group of landscape architects together in the history of the state. People at the highest levels in their organizations that were experts at designing parks and interpretive facilities put together a beautiful plan. So I hope that you might be dealing more with an operations plan than a whole site master plan, because I think a lot of the foundation has been laid, and it isn't timely. It might need to be revisited, but it's certainly not timely all the work. So I hope that you guys can not look at reinventing all that and hiring and starting all over again, because there was a huge amount of public and the biggest gathering of landscape architects in the history of this state that were all very highly qualified and well respected in the community. So that was it for my comments. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. Alan?
The design for the west side of Prison Hill, that you're the Sniffleman grant effort, is the concept for a single track, or is it going to be more like Buzzy's Ranch?
Okay, so the plan for Prison Hill, or what we'd like to do, which follows planning that goes back to 1995, including the Eagle Valley Trails Committee, is to create a loop trail around the base of Prison Hill and then single track within Prison Hill. So it would be a double track around the west side trail would be a double track, which would be another segment of an eventual loop trail around the base of Prison Hill. Correct. The grant also would include improvements to the Coons Lane trailhead and access to the trailhead.
Great. Anything else, Alan? Susan, how about you?
Really quick, I'm assuming that these are all in concurrent, that, yes, there's a priority, but some come and go as information becomes available and money becomes available. So that's your intent, is to move forward with them all.
Yes, so that's kind of one aspect that isn't necessarily represented in this work plan. I tried to put things on here that I knew we would be getting to, or that are definitely priorities in the next year. There may be a few items that fall down that priority list, but most of these are pretty high priorities for the next year, and we plan on just doing them all.
Yeah, the staff is not underworked. They do an outstanding job. One thing I think it's going to be important is we need to remember our partner Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District in so many different areas. They've just been a solid supporter of a lot of things that we do and a lot of things that are important for our open space program. So, are there any other comments from the committee before we go to public comment?
I might add something, Bruce.
I have one.
You had yours.
I know, but I thought of something else. I said it was only for a minute.
Go ahead, Margie.
All I want to say is I'm embarrassed that you brought up weeds before I did. Good job, Bruce.
Thanks, Margie. Sorry to give you a hard time. Lindsay, did you have something to add?
Yes, I was going to add actually related to weeds. So thank you, Bruce and Margie, for bringing those up. So while it isn't specifically called out under here, I tried to lump some things together. So vegetation management, noxious weed abatement is under the routine maintenance category here. So we did capture that. What that doesn't capture, I think, is just how much time we do spend on noxious weed abatement throughout the year. It is one of the largest land management activities that we're involved in. And one thing that will be different this year is with our senior natural resource specialist position. We did make the decision to roll in some of the duties from the invasive plants coordinator position that we used to have. That was a part-time position, and we were seeing a lot of rollover with that position. It was just challenging for staff to keep a cohesive plan moving forward with it being part-time and challenges with keeping folks around. So The senior natural resource specialist, when we fill that position, which will be happening very soon, we're setting up interviews for early March. But that individual will be tasked with managing noxious weeds, not only in open space, but kind of overseeing some of those weed endeavors throughout our department and the city as well. So we will have some really good oversight related there. And then the $15,000 that we receive from Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District, instead of using that money to fund a part-time position, we're going to use that for treatment. So we'll put the whole thing into treatment, which I think will be a much better plan.
Great. It's, since Margie was doing that job, it's been kind of a stepchild ever since, so we're glad to see it get to be a little higher priority with some funding. Obviously, we've had funding issues, but
Yeah.
it's a good critical program that is sort of below the radar for most people. Okay, any other board comments or committee comments before we go to public comment? Okay, let's call for public comment.
We have 3 callers on the line. Callers, when you hear the 2 beeps, you're up for public comment.
I have no comment at this end.
Moving on to the second caller. Caller, do you wish to make public comment?
This is Dave Bentel speaking again. I would like to, Lindsay mentioned the culvert system under Ash and Kings Canyon roads. I'm interested in what are you going to do under this fiscal year for the historic culvert, the culvert under the historic Snyder Road. That's the first question. And the other question is, when do you anticipate the submittal of the ARA to Robin Reed regarding Snyder's age, which is greater than 50 years?
Thank you for your question. Lindsay, can you
Thank
address that, or Greg?
So Lindsay Boyer for the record. So related to your second question, Dave, about the cultural resources. So I mentioned earlier that the Section 106 process for the south end of Prison Hill specifically has been approved by SHPO, and we are ready to move forward with implementing all of our plans for the south end of Prison Hill. As a component of that report, it was identified that Snyder Avenue, the portion that intersects with Golden Eagle Lane right there at the beginning of our property of Prison Hill, that Snyder Avenue is considered a historic resource as well. So separately of our Prison Hill OHV area project, we will be working with the State Historic Preservation Office to review Snyder Avenue and complete an evaluation of it as it relates to impacts or effects from the Prison Hill OHV area, which our cultural resources consultant has indicated that there will not be any impacts, but it's something that we need to record and identify just to make sure we're covering all of our bases with the state. As to your second question about the historic culvert under Golden Eagle Lane, we've been in discussions with Nevada Division of State Lands, since that portion of the culvert does actually fall under their property. So we've initiated discussions with them, and we'll continue having that discussion, trying to find a solution for that part of the road moving forward.
Thank you,
Okay, the
Lindsay.
solution is to access the inlet to the culvert. That's it. It's not expensive. So I hope it's going to be done this year, because
I'm sorry, this is really not a discussion item. We did ask for a response to your question, but I think further discussion from a committee's perspective probably needs to be agendized. I would suggest also talking to staff in the meantime if you would like to do that. It sounds like it's a concern that's more at the staff level than the committee level.
well, I don't think so. It should be at the committee level, but it's okay.
Okay, well, be sure anything you want to bring to the committee would come through staff, so that's the place to start. Thank you. Okay, we had one more caller?
Yes, caller number 3, when you hear the 2 beeps, you're up for comment.
Hi, Robin Orloff again. I'd like to comment specifically, please, on this discussion. In relation to the Donna talking about the conservation easement and the Horse Creek Ranch, I'd like to segue from that and just just bring up again that Prison Hill in its entirety is conservation easement, as you all know, including the OHV area. I think sometime that area is forgotten. But just like the private conservation easement, the public ones, I've been told by people who do easements, are the same idea. You set up what you want to protect and you make sure it's protected, and you do it on a regular basis, and you analyze and you monitor it. So I'm hoping that will continue, and we have to remember that even in the charrette, the OHV area was included in that charrette, and it was thus included in the conservation easement. And it's discussed on page 3, actually, in the conservation easement. And in terms of, I think Alan asked about the trails that are going, the Carson River Trail that's going all around Prison Hill. And Greg, you mentioned that was initiated in 1995. And in 1995, the land was not conservation easement. And I believe from the land management plan, Open Space's own land management plan, that when that came into being, the land was going to be developed in a more restricted, more protected way than open space or anything before. So I would hope that the circumnavigation trail would be, like we talked about, single or double track, in keeping with the conservation easement. I think it's important that we consider how are we honoring this land and keeping it natural. I've been told that the trail that's proposed in the grant that OSAC approved and Board of Supervisor approved is the same caliber as, I call it, a road that goes from 5th Street to Silver Saddle. It's 8 to 10 feet wide. It's got 2 to 6 feet shoulders. That's been confirmed that is the conceptual plan that's gone to SNPLA. And I just wanted to express my concern. I hope we can discuss further. Is that trail appropriate for conservation easement land? Not only that, it's going to go pretty close behind all the homes on Gentry. And it's going to be a new trail put in behind all those homes from Snyder to Clearview. And I hope we are considerate of our neighbors and, don't end up with a prolonged situation that has gone on like at Kings Canyon Road. I think we need to honor our citizens who want to walk and enjoy open space, but also our citizens who've chosen to live places because there's land, behind their homes that they expect to stay natural. Put the trail in, great, but let's remember it's conservation easement. And I also I'm still confused about the interim map going in the OHV area, and there were no Section 106 studies before that map went in and was published and was used, and we don't do that in any other open space areas anywhere in town. We always have to do the Section 106 first. So, maybe it was just an oversight, but it did cause a tremendous amount of damage to the area before the Section 106 could be done. And certainly if there were any cultural resources, which weren't found, I guess, or weren't significant, FONSI, I guess you call it, they would have been trampled and scattered around prior to the study being able to be done. So,
Robin,
just, I'm done, and I'm done. Thank you for listening, and
okay.
everything
Thank you for
do.
your comments. That was about 4 minutes, just so you know. Okay.
Well, I appreciate.
Any other comments, public comments? Any other callers waiting?
We have no more callers.
Thank you. Final discussion, or any comments or questions from the committee? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'm happy to make them. Oh,
Go ahead, Margie.
I move to approve the open space work plan for fiscal year 2021-2022 as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Susan. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Unanimous. Okay, we are at item number 9. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for the fiscal year 2021-2022 open space budget. Lindsay B.
All right, so the item before you is the open space budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022. This is another item that's in municipal code that indicates that, you guys should have the opportunity to review our proposed budget, and then that will eventually go into what the city manager, presents to the board. So this budget may look just a little, I don't want to say limited, but it's not like other budgets that you may be used to. It's more of identifying areas where we intend to spend funds and the approximate allocation of funding that we want to put in those areas. The good news with the Q18 open space budget is that any of the unspent revenue from each fiscal year rolls over into an account that we call just the undesignated account. That was what Member Martinovich was referencing earlier. So with that ends up being kind of a catch-all, and we're able to move money around as needed or put money into other categories if we find that we've spent more than we originally anticipated. However, we do want to have a plan and know where our monies are going to be spent in a general sense. So that's kind of what this document is before you. So the first section, salaries and benefits, you can see that we are paying for 100% of the salaries for several of our staff positions, including myself, the senior natural resource specialist, our maintenance coordinator. With our trails coordinator salary, a portion of that does come from the general fund since Greg does work throughout the city. You'll notice with our park ranger positions that open space is paying for 50% of both of those salaries, as well as anything that they may need, as it relates to uniforms or training, things like that. We are splitting that 50-50 between open space and parks. With the senior park ranger, we are paying approximately 71% of that salary. And then you'll notice we pay a small percentage of various other individual salaries as they contribute to our overall ability to function. Other items highlighted here, so more kind of salary related things, but related to our seasonals. So we will have one open space maintenance seasonal for the summer. We've had that the last few years. So we did budget for that. The Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker position, that has been vacant for some time. But we did refill that position, and we have a new individual starting this week. So their role and responsibility will be to open and close the gate out at Silver Saddle Ranch. In the past, that was primarily their only duty. We did have some issues with recruitment this year. That's why the position was vacant for so long, because it was challenging to find someone who was willing to come to the site twice a day to open and close the gate, but not really have a whole lot of other hours. So we did make the decision to bump up the potential for that individual to work the 1,039 hours in a fiscal year, which is the part-time allowable number of hours it can work. So the idea there is that we'll get more help from this individual on a year-round basis. So whether that's working on maintenance projects or cleaning the restrooms, with Prison Hill Fish Street trailhead just down the road and seeing so much increased use out there, the Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker will also help us out with some cleaning and maintenance activities over there as well as just the new trail in between and monitoring for any issues along the way there. And then the past few years, we have worked with the Great Basin Institute to hire a summer AmeriCorps intern. The last year, we did have someone on board. We called them a recreation intern, so they helped us out with a lot of activities throughout open space, but especially out at the south end of Prison Hill. We will be moving forward with having another summer intern this year through GBI as well, and they'll continue to assist with the work out at the south end of Prison Hill, and pretty much anywhere else Greg wants to put them to work. So other items identified on this budget, anything that was increased or changed is highlighted in red. So I will go over some of those changes. So both under, well, I'll start with professional services. So I mentioned that we're going to be doing a lot of cultural review and Section 106 compliance in the next year. So I did bump that up a little bit to account for that. This line item also is what we use to pay for our portable restrooms, any of the consulting work that we do. So this is a big catch-all for a lot of the areas that we spend our money. Under maintenance and management, I did bump that up a little bit as well, and that was to account for just the increase in maintenance and management activities that we are doing, as well as to account for some matching funds that will be contributing this year as well that will come out of that account. I did add the noxious weed abatement, $15,000 that we received from CWSD. Wasn't previously in the budget since that was going towards staffing, but now I've added it to illustrate we will be able to use that for not only doing treatments, boots on the ground work, but it's a really versatile amount of money. We can use it to purchase new equipment, whether that's spray equipment. We can use it to purchase herbicide, seed for revegetation. Pretty much anything that goes into noxious weed abatement can be funded through that grant. Supplied uniforms, I did bump up just slightly, and that's to account for our park ranger program. And I mentioned that 50-50 split on their supplies and needs. Same with the small tools. I did just include that in there to kind of match with the park ranger budget. We'll be helping to outfit them with the tools and things that they need to do their jobs as well. And then down at the bottom, you'll notice that there's a line item for machinery/equipment. This is more or less where I've been capturing our capital improvement project requests or CIPs. So this year we submitted several CIPs to the finance department. One of them is for a right-of-way tractor attachment. So this will allow us to clear defensible space, not only along trails, but also areas like behind the Mexican ditch or any other areas where homes are adjacent to trails and the wildland urban interface. So that will help a lot. That's currently a piece of equipment we do not have, and we have to contract any of that type of work out. So with our maintenance coordinator, we'll be able to utilize that equipment. Similarly, we also put in for a trail groomer. So this will allow, especially out the south end of Prison Hill, to maintain the trails and roads out there. But really any of our dirt trails and roads, this piece of equipment will be used for the maintenance and upkeep of those. And again, that's not a piece of equipment we currently have or have the ability to do in-house. Another item on here to also be used for trails and parking lots is a ride-on sweeper vac. This is something that we'll be splitting with the Parks Department. 25% of that will be coming from open space, and the remainder will be funded by Parks through the general fund. So that will be a shared equipment between our two divisions. So those are kind of the primary inputs as far as machinery and equipment is concerned. And then the sort of footnote section or the next section just kind of provides a little bit more detail to, for example, some of those matching funds and things that we'll be allocating. And the Kings Canyon item that we discussed tonight is also outlined in this item as well. So with that, I will take any questions from the committee.
Okay, questions we'll start down there. Susan?
Thank you. I have a few. So the budget in 2021, and your fiscal year's July 1st, right? That's what I understood. Okay. And so it was based on projected revenue. Is the projection of the revenue and the expenditures that were in your budget, are they tracking? And you may not have an exact, but are you anticipating a surplus that will then go into that undesignated, or at least not a deficit?
Yes, great question. So the open space budget can be challenging for that reason, in that we are receiving this funding from the sales tax, and that's, rolling in. We never really know at any moment in time exactly what that figure is, because we're always a few months behind in terms of knowing sales tax information. But because we have that undesignated account and it rolls over every year, that ends up being a pretty good cushion for most of what the budget is actually paying for. And then that item at the top that talks about the incoming revenues, that's going to end up being, I don't want to say on top of that, but we have a very healthy budget, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And again, you know, those unallocated funding amounts just go into that undesignated account. We can use them accordingly. So yes, I am anticipating that we'll have a surplus. And does that answer your question?
It does. It
Okay.
prompts other questions that maybe I could talk to you offline.
Sure.
But,
Let me add
then-
something there real quickly, if I could, to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Susan.
No, it's fine.
We basically have more income than direct expense or budgeted expense, but we try to accumulate funds for purposes of grant matching,
Yes.
outright purchases. Some things you've probably seen going through, we paid 100% for. Some things we get a much better match, and the flap grant, for example, was even better. But we try to keep a reserve for acquisitions because you can't plan all of them. And so it's helpful to have money in the bank, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that, perfect. Totally understand that. And so then maybe my question is that you're not in jeopardy of losing that, though. I mean, if the account gets, let's say, big and you're saving it for maybe a large acquisition or something,
They
grant
wouldn't,
application.
they wouldn't dare.
Can't, okay. Okay,
No,
perfect.
it's
Good answer.
it's
Yeah.
earmarked. It's
Good,
earmarked
that's, I
funding.
thought it was, but
Yeah.
just as part of that. And then, another question on the professional services. I'm assuming, just like the state had a process, the city has a process for soliciting design consultants and then also construction and contractors there. Okay. And then the fire suppression, or the sheep were a part of that budget, I'm assuming.
Yes, that's an excellent question. So this fire suppression line item, the approximately $10,000, that's actually an account that the city pays into to NDF for fire suppression services. So lots of different departments within the city pay into that account. And so that's a fixed amount that open space pays into. And that's why it says it cannot be adjusted by the committee, because it's kind of part of that overall city fire suppression services that we're paying for.
Which is the same as the fleet management that you mentioned as well. Okay.
And to speak to the sheep, those services are actually all free, which is pretty phenomenal. It ends up being a trade-off. You know, for us, we get the fuel reduction. For the rancher, he gets his sheep fed for 2 months. So we're really lucky to have that partnership.
Great, that was my questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Susan, on the, just historically, we got a really good deal at $10,000 for the fire department. It used to be 100. And so we pay attention to detail, you bet. I have no idea where you learned those things, but gee, you're good. Okay, other comments or questions? Alan, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a
Oh,
just small question. One is, has there been any consideration of trying to put in an automated gate at Silver Saddle? And then I'll just go to my second one, just because it's hard to turn this thing on and off. As I noticed that your professional services went up quite a bit, is there any particular reason for that?
Just taking notes. So yes, great question. So you are very correct. Yes, we have considered putting in an automatic gate at Silver Saddle. We actually have started that process. So we have to complete Section 106 before we can do that. That was an item that was actually included in last year's CIP request, was to fund that automatic gate. So we have a design ready to go. We started that process with SHPO. We're hopeful, because it's a relatively small project, that it can be pushed through relatively quickly. But the hope is that, yes, we get in that automatic gate, and then we no longer have to rely on staff to open and close that thing every day, because it can be a little bit of a logistical challenge. And then at that point, that caretaker their roles and responsibilities could be rolled into other parts of needing help in open space. And then to answer your professional services question, the main reason for that increase is the anticipation that we'll be doing a lot more Section 106 review in the next year, and that can be pretty costly on a per acre basis.
Thank you, Alan. If I misstate, tell me, but basically, where we are required to do Section 106, we basically, to put in a sign or a fence post, we have to do a Section 106. And so it becomes a fairly involved and time-consuming process and frustrating, as you've heard from some of the comments earlier tonight, because people don't realize how involved it is to meet those requirements. And the State Historic Preservation Office is not, overly staffed, and they have their challenges as well. So just putting up signs or replacing a fence, you see a fence that's just a jack fence sitting on the ground, it's because it doesn't require an excavation, and it's a short-term effort to solve a problem that fencing can help. So most people don't realize how involved it is. Mark, did you have any questions?
I do.
Jerry, is that you?
Yes, it is, sir.
Go ahead.
My first question is, and it's just a minor question, I'm wondering why Silver Saddle Ranch has a phone. And my second question is, what are the totals of the amount budgeted in 2021 and 2022, and what is the percentage of increase over the 1 year to the next?
Sorry, I was just taking some notes. So for the record, Lindsay Boyer. So good question on the Silver Saddle Ranch phone. In the past, staff had talked about the potential to make that actually an office for the park rangers. So there has been items in the budget for years towards that effort of if we ever wanted to make it an office. So it includes internet and phone. We've never made that decision. It's sort of hung out in the budget as a potential line item. We don't ever end up spending that. And if we, really got down to it, the amount that's been allocated there could be used elsewhere. So it ends up just sort of being a placeholder for something that we're not currently pursuing. And then to your second question, could you actually repeat it? Or maybe let me take a stab at understanding. So you're wondering about the percentage increase in revenue from the several years?
What the total expenses were for the budget of 2021 with all your line items here. And I want to know what the total is for 2022, your projections, and the percentage of increase that you think is just a minor bump.
That is a great question. I don't have the numbers on that on the top of my head. I can absolutely find out and follow up with the committee. And it looks like Jen may want to contribute something too.
Okay, let's get an answer for Jerry when you have a chance to look at the numbers. And I realize some of those expenses are not, you got to wait for finance.
We'll have to wait for finance on projections, and we can, I think, Member Martinovich also mentioned that earlier. And when those projections are ready to go, we can share that with the committee. And that will help with the percent change in the budget to answer Jerry's questions as well.
Other questions, Jerry?
No, sir.
Okay, Mark. Push it down harder and hold it for just a minute and let up.
There it goes. My first question was, I was confused. I thought the city didn't have to do biennial budgets like I did with state for 30 years. So do you guys put in a budget every year, or do you, every 2 years, do you put a budget in? I'm a little confused.
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We put in an annual budget, and it's obviously a plan. The Board of Supervisors to go over the process. Right now, we're doing operating and capital improvement budgets right now, and then we will, in April, they'll finalize those, and then the Board of Supervisors will approve the fiscal year budget in May.
So you're only asking for approval for 21 then?
No,
For 22, I mean.
For 22.
Yeah, because of the split in the year, because with the July. I got it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the reason 21 is in your packet is just for comparison purposes, so you
Okay.
know where we were this last year.
Because that was going to be my next question. I always like to see the previous year and the previous year's in here. Got it. I got it. Thank you.
Anything else, Mark?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
Donna, any questions on your end? I have one. Jennifer, I think it goes to you or Lindsay, but the senior park ranger at 71%, you know how I am about allocating costs for rangers. Explain to me how it's 71%.
Yeah.
So thank you, that's a great question. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Last year, when we requested, that's a new position that we got approved. We did request and recommend, like the board approved here, for it to be a 50-50 split, consistent with the other park rangers. The only way the board would approve it was with that current split, because they didn't want that increase into the general fund. We did have to give up a lot for that remaining percentage that comes out of the general fund. We gave up 2 of our AmeriCorps positions and are rolling some of those duties in with the park rangers. But we weren't able to get the 50-50 approved by the board. We can definitely ask again this year as we submit our budget and try again. But that would be my preference, is if it's a 50-50 split. I think it's more representative of what the duties and the things that they have to deal with. But we can definitely request that again.
We did have that discussion last year, and I recall, and I think from open space's perspective, in my narrow opinion, having the new position was more valuable than what I would consider to be a temporary misallocation in terms of the percentage. With the idea that, you know, we certainly can go to bat to support as the balance of the general fund budget is in a better position to try to bring that to parity. But I would hope we could get there, you know, as budgets improve a little bit as a priority item, because I think that's fair, and I think it would be really helpful. And certainly this committee can help make the case should you need that.
And I'm happy to bring that recommendation forward. I would just, with the domino effect with COVID and what the state and our federal partners are projecting, I'm not sure the timing is going to be great on our side for that, but we can definitely ask and move forward.
Well, you know, it would seem to me that it's not a good time, you know, but at the same time, I think making people understand that that's a goal and there's a value and a fairness there. And in the meantime, we need the rangers. And so I think open space is stepping up a little bit to try to help the process with the idea that it'll come back later on.
Agreed.
So, great. Any other comments or questions from the committee on the proposed budget?
I want to, Margie's here when you're ready.
Ready, Margie, go ahead.
Terry's here when you're ready too.
Okay, so I just want to say that I also noticed the 71% for the senior park ranger. And we talked about it extensively a year ago and asked that it only be a 1-year situation. With it becoming now to be a 2-year situation, we're allowing a precedent, and it's not going to ever get reduced, even though we only get 50% of the rangers, if that. So I'm a little bit upset about it. I accept that we're helping out parks, but I need for the city to understand that open space is giving more than what we're getting.
Okay, thank you, Margie. I think, you know, some of the other allocations percentage-wise are a little grayer, but that one's pretty black and white. But I think, to me, making the point that we see this as a evolving situation, I would hate to have a reaction that the general fund for parks won't fund the 29% because we think it's unfair that we pay 71. So I'm hopeful that we can ensure that this is not a permanent situation and that over the next couple of years, we'll be able to get those budgets balanced out. But that would be my goal.
I hope you're right, Bruce. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jerry, did you have another question or comment?
When is the budget going to the Board of Supervisors for approval?
I think it's the second meeting in May, but I can confirm that and let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the committee or questions? Yes, Susan. Oh, let me ask for public comment first. Let's ask for public comment on this agenda item.
We do have one caller on the line. Caller, when you hear the two beeps, you're up for public comment.
No comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Susan, back to you.
Thank you. I agree with the discussion. If we don't ask, then we'll never get a change. So I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022 as presented with recommendation to ask for 50-50 split for the senior park ranger.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Okay, is there discussion on the motion?
I second.
Thank you, Margie. Any further discussion on the motion? Mark, go ahead.
There. What is the protocol for this committee when it comes to an agenda item for the Board of Supervisors for comment at that specific meeting about these concerns? Is there a protocol that you guys gone in the past where you can go or not go? Or does Jen take that as a spokesperson for this committee? Just a question.
Yeah, and staff can answer too, but from my experience, frequently as the chairman, I have gone to the Board of Supervisors with staff to answer questions or reinforce things. But certainly committee members are not precluded from participating in that effort, but typically it's been the chairman or the vice chairman that have, we sort of had a representative there, so to speak, that was part of the process. But that's been the history. Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I apologize. Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record.
Hi, Ben.
I just wanted to add onto what you just said. Any member of the committee is welcome to make public comment at any of the Board of Supervisors meetings. It's just that with the understanding that you're there in your personal capacity, so you wouldn't want to make any references or representations that you're there on behalf of the Open Space Committee. So you're there in your personal capacity making a statement rather than, as a representative of this board.
Thank you, Ben. I think that's a good clarification. Any other discussion on this agenda item before we? I will be recusing myself from the vote on this matter because I do work for Carson City. So with that, I will call for the question. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Margie says
Nay.
aye. Okay, is that a nay, Jerry?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I will abstain. So do we get that vote okay? Great, thank you. Okay. Item number 10, discussion regarding the removal of unauthorized memorials located on Carson City open space properties and establishing procedures in the department memorial policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So this item, as far as the memorial policy, has come before the committee before. The department is working on coming up with a memorial policy that we would be using both in parks and open space. And the draft policy is included in your packet, but the real item for discussion today that we wanted to bring to the committee relates to unauthorized memorials on open space property. So in your packet, you can see there's 2 photos here of memorials that we found kind of in the Ash Canyon, Eagle View open space area. And we wanted to bring this to the committee for a little bit of direction as it relates to unauthorized memorials. I think open space and parks tend to attract, wanting to memorialize a pet or a loved one, which is completely understandable, but does lend to some issues as far as staff is concerned with having items on the landscape that are not natural or may lend to some issues as they degrade and kind of become a little bit of a sore spot on the landscape within open space. So we are looking to come up with some kind of policy potentially on how to manage and approach these memorials. Is it something that we create a certain amount of time that, the memorial is tagged and it's asked to be removed? And then staff are able to follow back up. So we don't necessarily have anything as far as that particular part of the policy is concerned, but we wanted to bring it to the committee for discussion and kind of see what your thoughts and feelings are related to this matter. Obviously, it's a very sensitive matter, and we want to be as respectful as we can while also keeping our open spaces clean and pristine. Jen, do you have anything to add to that? So with that, I'll take any questions or discussion from the committee.
Quick question before I open it up to the committee. Do we know who is involved in those 2 particular?
As far as the person that they, or
Yeah, if we
entity
wanted
that
to
they
contact
represent.
somebody, do we have any idea who it would be?
So the one that is the cross, there's no identifying information there. The one that is the second photo that's behind WNC, there is some identifying information there, and we were able to find an obituary. So we think we will be able to contact the family, or at least attempt to contact them in that way. But more often than not, they may not have any identifying features or a way to contact anyone.
We do have a committee member who may have been involved in this kind of thing before, and I would start with you, Susan. Do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you. This is a tough one, and during my tenure with NDOT, we ran into the same issue with memorials along the roadway, and we actually took some surveys to get opinions from people, users, across the state. What did they think about them? And there was no definitive answer. And so what we did, and please understand the policy may have been changed, but during my tenure as the DOT director, what we decided to do was that along the lines that you had mentioned, Bruce, and maybe something that to recommend is that we did tag them, and we did try to notify the family or anyone that we could, if we could find, or even, if there was a family associated with it. We did try to notify them and let them know that we were going to remove them, and we did. And we removed them, took the features to a yard and kept them for a little bit of time, just in case somebody did show up and want what it was. But our thinking is that after a while, they weren't really maintained, and it became a hazard. And the same, and I can see it here with the open space. It just could become a hazard. It attracts, people might walk in different places that aren't intended to be walked, or trails. And so, and we even tried to put a notice in the newspaper if we could. So I guess I would recommend, it is very sensitive, but I'd err on the caution of protecting the lands and what we're supposed to do as a committee and as a group for Carson City. Let people have an opportunity, tell them that there are ways to recognize and acknowledge memorials that and I was reading what you do have, and I think that they're very good. I have one comment on the trees, but I think that should be, and if you're consistent and try, and you have a why are you doing it, then that's what I would recommend is removing them after a certain amount of time. And we did that, and you're never going to make everybody happy. Like I said, 50% of the people were for and against, but then at the end of the day, you have to come to be, what is your mission and what is your charge? And that's what we followed.
Thank you, Susan. Other comments from the committee?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jerry.
My question is for Ben. Ben, is there no city statutes or ordinances concerning this?
I'm not sure if there's any city ordinances. I'm just getting up to speed on this item, so I really can't state whether or not there are any statutes. I would have to confer with Mihaela, the previous DDA, to see how far she got into any research regarding this item. So I can't say right now, but I would definitely look into it.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We did ask the District Attorney's Office to look in to see if there's any appropriate local statutes. There isn't anything in city code. There are some concerns with the one with the cross and it being government property and implications related to that. So I do have that provision about that certain item. But as we move forward, this board already had a lot of recommendations about open space ordinances and enhancing those. We're going to be looking in the next year or so to start the process of revamping the open space and parks codes for the entire department and just having open discussions about what we'd like to see incorporated in the future. So I think that's a great question that Member Masad had, because we might be able to incorporate that into our ordinance update. So while we might not have anything now, doesn't mean we can't include something in the future.
Thank you. Alan, did you have a comment?
Yes, I guess I would suggest that as we move forward, we think a lot about how we would get a hold of people. Maybe we tag the items in the field, so if somebody is continuing to revisit the site, that they have notice, and so you're respectful, but nonetheless make an effort to let people know. Perhaps post something on the Open Space and Parks website for a while. And so, but I do agree we need to be consistent and respectful, but we also need to be respectful of the land and maybe put a time limit that, something could be out there in terms of letting somebody know that, if they want this object, they have an opportunity to collect it and do something else with it before it's just taken down. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Anything, Donna, or?
Yes. Jerry.
Go ahead, Jerry.
What gives anybody the right to put stuff up on open space? I mean, Alan, I hear what you're saying, but if I was to come up and put a memorial on your front lawn, what would you say? I mean, it's not okay to leave it there for a week, 3 days, 2 months. Why are they allowed to do it at all? That's my question.
I think it's a good question, and obviously something we're grappling with, because we have to do something, obviously to address it. And I think
May I make a comment?
Certainly, Margie.
When you're done. It just occurs to me that it might be kind to give a short amount of time to have something in an area where somebody loved, where somebody was lost and loved. And I'm a little bit speaking personally now. There were certain places around open space that were particular favorites of Jack's, but it never did occur to me that it was a place that I could go up there and put a memorial up. And many times the memorials that people do put up they forget about them as time heals. They become they become a blight on our open space. So I think that we should have a policy that we don't allow unauthorized memorials. And if they want to do something for a period of time, they need to understand that within a month or 2 weeks or whatever time frame we decide on, then it has to be removed or our staff will remove it.
Okay, thank you, Margie. Donna, go ahead.
Well, I understand wanting to, memorialize someone, but I agree if the draft policy that is here, if they wanted to do something within the parameters of what we would offer, that's fine. But these makeshift little things, if we were to allow it, even temporary things, it can quickly get out of hand. And they don't belong on the land. And yeah, it's time, we need to take it in hand, because this is just two of them. I can't tell you how many I have seen out there, mostly of pets, but I see a lot of them out there, all over the place. And if we don't take control of it, finally, there's no open space left. They're all over the place, and they do become really trash heaps after a while because they aren't maintained. So we need to take control of it. I'm glad we're doing something about it.
Mark, did you have a comment?
Jerry does.
Just a sec, Jerry. We're going to hear from Mark.
Okay.
Having managed in thousands of acres of state parks, memorials are a common thing to happen in the park for people for special reasons, but it all comes down to an ordinance. You got to get something in the city statutes that allow you guys to take these out, because they need to be taken out. You can't have it. I'm sorry. They have ways of doing it. They can adopt the trees like it says in here, or a bench, or do these other, as long as they're given an alternative. But you don't have time to chase all these people down and find out who they are normally. So it was a very easy decision for us with an ordinance just to take them out, I'm afraid. But I like what Susan did. They hung on to them for a while just in case they dropped in and were concerned. But it can't be part of the landscape, and that's our charge as an open space committee, not to litter the natural environment with memorials. And we're sorry, but that's we have these alternatives. So I just wanted to say that, and I know I'm running out of time, but the best thing I ever had was I was with a rim trail on the California-Nevada border above the Cow Neva. Somebody drug a slot machine up there, mounted on a cemented post, and had a slot machine as you come into Nevada from California. The Forest Service's method for getting rid of it was to hook a chain to it and drag it all the way to my office with a rim trail. Figured we did it for a fundraiser. But that was, I thought it was totally cool, but that was not a memorial. But that's a good story about what can happen out there on your trails with a slot machine of 20 miles from the nearest facility. So thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Jerry, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I would support an avenue for people to have memorials that was, maybe a plaque or a tree or whatever the memorial was, but not for just them to just come up and do whatever they want, wherever they want. I don't know why we should have to pay the rangers to store them or tear them down or anything. I think that we need to do something about that. But if there was an avenue for them to show something for their loved ones, hey, I'm all for it.
That works.
Yeah, they belong in NDOT right away. Yes, Jennifer.
Thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wondered if there's any recommendation for a time frame for how long they should be posted. And then if you recommend that they be stored, how long that they should be stored for. At the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, we did discuss that there as well. We discussed a 30-day for posting and then holding on to items for 30 days as well. And then we'll revisit this item too. This is just discussion right now. We'll refine the policy further and bring it back to the joint meeting with Parks and the Open Space in June.
I think
Jerry,
oh, I think Jerry had a great point, that it is open space, but people don't realize sometimes where the boundaries are. They don't know this piece from that piece and where it is. So I would keep it short. I guess my recommendation would be tag it or a couple weeks. And Alan was spot on. The people who do that, they kind of gotta know they're might be doing something not right. And so if we have it on the website, that prompt them to go to the website and look and make notice. So I guess I would just maybe have a week or a couple weeks. Just reality is, are you going to be able to get up there or see it and then take it down and for 30 days?
Jerry, did you have another comment?
I do, and I don't know exactly who this comment is for, but I'm wondering how do we go about getting an ordinance that addresses this?
Thanks, Jerry. This is Jennifer Budge. So we will be working on ordinances for the entire department. If you look at the chapters we have, they're very, very weak in the open space area. We have had the deputy or the district attorney's office tell us that we can enforce the majority of the parks ordinances within open space where we have issues of vandalism or litter, or those other ordinances that are already in place. So what we would do is we'd like to do one big overhaul rather than do one ordinance at a time. It just doesn't get done all that well. I'd like to start, maybe toward the end of this year, working with this committee and with the Parks and Recreation Commission and starting to look at our ordinances, revamping those, add items that we want to see, and then overall, the district attorney's office would bring those forward. And you have to have multiple readings, so you have an initial reading of your ordinances, you have public comment, and then you come back, and then the board considers that approval. So it takes 2 Board of Supervisors meetings to approve an ordinance or a series of ordinances.
What we have here in draft is a pretty comprehensive one. And in spite of what you just said, is there any possibility of simply having something as an interim measure that would basically be a board action to say that there are no memorials allowed on open space property unless specifically approved by the board, period?
Well, the intent of this policy is once it's refined by the Parks Commission and the Open Space Advisory Committee is to bring it to the Board of Supervisors for adoption of this
I get
policy.
that, but this
So
is
that
a lot.
But that would be in the policy.
Right.
That it's not allowed. So once the board approves it, the park rangers can cite and deal with that. So
No, I understand. It's the problem of the comprehensive ordinance when, to me, this could be segmented out and then incorporated in the future, but something that might be, and maybe I'm being too optimistic, but it might be sort of more of a black and white kind of thing that wouldn't require a lot of discussion about what kind of trees or how big the plaque in the park can be. But rather is just simply any memorial in open space, unless it's specifically approved by the board, is prohibited. Just even if that gets superseded or refined with the more comprehensive one. Because I know what you're saying and I understand, but, that process, given our staff level and all the other things, we're out there 6 months to a year because this kind of a policy for the broader base, requires some discussion in public hearing.
I can talk, Ben and I can talk offline and put together maybe a
Okay.
time frame and some wording. And maybe we could bring that
Would
to the next.
concept be okay with the committee members?
I'd actually include parks in that too. It might be a good joint meeting because really you don't want unauthorized memorials anywhere.
Yeah.
If they're going
I
to be
agree.
approved, there would be a process, whether it's at a park or at the cemetery, there still would be a process where there's approvals. So anything that's not approved, would just
Yeah.
not be allowed.
We do have a joint meeting coming up in June,
Okay.
so
We do.
maybe, would that be
That's the
okay
agenda.
to be an agenda item?
Absolutely.
Something more on time frame. So I think, especially we have social media available to us, I think 72 hours is plenty of time, a week at most. I think it should be posted on social media. And, we've got Facebook, Parks and Rec, Open Space has a Facebook page, and and post it on that and on the site and say, you know, the site must be taken down, will be, you know, if you want anything from it, remove it, it'll be taken down in maximum of 1 week, and you can pick it up, it'll be kept for 30 days at the Parks and Rec office, you know, yard, otherwise it'll be disposed of.
Yes,
My
Susan.
only not concern, but is that that means that the staff has to track that week, and it might be, and then if you aren't taking it down in a week, then all of a sudden you're setting precedents that, oh, they really don't mean it. So it's just a nuance that maybe for consider. I don't disagree with you, it's just, we don't want to make it hard on the
But we
staff.
could also use volunteers to remove it, to do the taking down. I mean, Muscle Power is out there doing trail work. So we could maybe use some volunteer work, people to help clean up, trash mob.
I have one more comment.
Okay, Jerry.
Donna, not that I disagree with you, but by what you're saying is that you were approving them to put up memorials anywhere anybody wants. Is that correct?
No,
No, the opposite. You know, if you post a picture of this on on our website and say, we're going to take this down, I think that's sending a message to other people. You better not, you know, don't bother trying to put it up because it's coming down anyway. And another kind of a second point is, I think we could distinguish between a cat memorial and something for a human being. I think the cat memorial can go in the trunk and we can just be done with it. I don't think we need to notify or anything. I mean, that just can go away as soon as anybody finds it.
I can't always tell from these memorials whether it's a pet or a human.
You may not, but, you know, I saw one on Carson River Canyon, it said, for my cat, so I'm pretty sure it was a cat.
Yeah, well, my cat is just like my child, so.
Can we have staff maybe give some thought to some timeframes and some other things so that the June meeting, joint meeting with Parks and Rec can be hopefully an action item that can come forward?
Absolutely.
Okay, further comments or questions from the committee? Okay, let's check for public comments.
We have no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay. Have we provided sufficient direction under this discussion item?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see, number 10. That was number 10. Number 11, staff updates, Trails Coordinator. Greg, you've been patient.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Greg Berger, Trails Coordinator. Lindsay did a great job presenting the annual report, but I still have a few things that I want to talk about with regard to trails. So, of course, the big item with regard to trails this year, of course, was what I call the COVID spike. And we saw hugely increased numbers of visitors to our trails in Carson City this year, and which does present challenges. But on the good side, I think that people coming out, using our trails and visiting open space and public lands, it presents the opportunity for them to develop an appreciation and recognize the intrinsic value of these areas. So hopefully, through that increased visitation, we will have an increased awareness and a desire to protect these areas. With regard to the Carson River Trail System that we opened up recently, we got some trail counters. We put those out on the 3 new trails. And as you can see from this data, we're getting well over 100 people a day on each of the 3 new segments of trail. If you extrapolate that out annually, that could be numbers exceeding 40,000 people per year on each of those segments of trail. These trails were designed for accessibility. So one of the things that really excites me, because I'm out on these trails a lot, riding my bike on the weekends, and what I see is families with small children on bikes. I see people pushing strollers. I see people with mobility issues that are using mobility devices to travel these trails, and I think that providing access to as many of our residents as we can is a worthy goal and something that we want to continue moving forward with. And I think that these numbers reflect the popularity and the benefit of these trails to Carson City. With regard to the motorized area, we've had quite a bit of discussion about that, and there's a couple things that I wanted to mention there. So, especially for the benefit of the new members, when we received when that area was conveyed to us in 2015 from the BLM considered the motorized area. They considered travel in that area to be unrestricted. We recognize that that is not sustainable. And so we undertook a project to better manage that area. We entered into a partnership with the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council, or NOVAC. We have obtained grants, and the exciting thing is that we have a plan, and we just recently, as Lindsay has mentioned, completed Section 106. We have authorization from the State Historic, or concurrence from the State Historic Preservation Office to move forward with our project. And so as we go forward this spring and summer, we're going to be making a number of enhancements out to that area. The challenge is, of course, and it's a difficult one, threading the needle between conservation and use. And that will continue to be a topic, probably forever. And it's one that we want to address carefully and with consideration. One of the things, something else I wanted to mention is that the Carson City Sheriff's Office recently got a national off-highway vehicle, a Nevada off-highway vehicle grant to purchase an ATV and to pay for some staff time to make patrols on OHV trails throughout Carson City. Now, some of these trails will be BLM trails, so they'll be working on a number of areas, but one of the areas that they will be addressing is the south end of Prison Hill. So we are going to have increased patrols down there. We're already planning, our rangers are already planning joint times and days when they will coordinate with the Sheriff's Office to be on site and to do educational things with visitors. We may put some of that out on social media or press releases so that people can come and visit and talk and learn about the area. And as the Sheriff's Office said, ride with a cop day or something. So there's some exciting things coming up, and the project has been on hold for a while, but we are ready to start moving forward in the next few months. So that's exciting. The 5th Street Trailhead, I know Lindsay mentioned that, but I also wanted to mention that we installed a number of interpretive signs on those trails this year, and we want to continue the installation of interpretive signs on some other trails, including the Carson River trails. There's a lot of stories to tell. There's Native American stories, as well as early history, of our area, like the dam and the Mexican ditch and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities to tell the stories about our area, and also to promote and brag about open space and our parks. In fact, one of the signs we put up on the ranch overlook on the 5th Street trails talks about the 5,000 acres of parks and open space that are visible from that one single point. And that's a very impressive number of acres for a small community like Carson City to be able to have and view from a single point. So we're going to continue with that. We made some improvements to the waterfall trail recently. We widened the trail at the top where the trail approaches the waterfall. Some of you who may be familiar with that, that was kind of a pretty risky little traverse to make from the main trail segment to the waterfall. So that's been fixed. It's nice and wide. It's safe. We decommissioned a number of the steep shortcut trails in that area. We did general maintenance on the upper portion of the trail, removed a bunch of graffiti. We placed several boulders on the, I guess, the north side of the waterfall area to provide sitting rocks and also probably hopefully help with some of the erosion. Decommissioned the old trail along the creek, put in additional signage and fencing, and so we're addressing the issues with the waterfall trail in advance of our Kings Canyon project, which will be coming this summer. Let's see. Oh, another exciting project, Capital Tahoe Lincoln Bypass Trail. So we have submitted all of the required environmental and cultural reviews to the Forest Service. The Forest Service is totally on board and supportive of the project. They're doing their review and public scoping. We expect to have the go-ahead on the Lincoln Bypass hopefully this spring and be able to construct that this summer. We're hoping to be able to construct the Capital Tahoe Trail next year, and I can't wait to put up a sign on the Capital Tahoe Trail that has mileages to Tahoe Rim Trail, to the Pacific Crest Trail, to Mexico, to Canada. That is going to be an exciting project to start moving forward with. We also we got a license agreement from the Western Nevada College recently to formalize the trails that exist on their property. We've been working with Nevada Division of State Lands for some time, and they also want to be an active partner in helping us to provide recreational opportunities for Carson City. So we're very close to getting a license from the state, which means that we will be able to sign and formalize the trails from Carson City all the way up Ash Canyon to Ash to Kings and up to Lake Tahoe. So, and along that line, Muscle Powered, earlier tonight it was mentioned that they have a small grant from the Caesars Foundation for signage, and so they have been placing signage on some of the trails in the Ash Canyon area, and we're going to continue that, especially now that we have a license from WNC, and we'll be able to work with the state on that as well. Let's see. Centennial Trails. So this is kind of more of a long-term project, but ultimately we want to make a connection to Washoe Lake State Park, McClellan Peak, and to Virginia City. I want to mention, I know we've talked about the great partner that CWSD is, but I also want to mention that the Culture and Tourism Authority has been a great partner to Carson City. They've provided the funding for some of the cultural reviews on Lincoln Bypass and Cap to Tahoe, and they also are helping us with funding for cultural reviews on Centennial Trails. Muscle Powered applied for our RTP grant for cultural review on these trails. We didn't get that, but we're hoping that with some of the funding from CTA, we can maybe work on the first part of our project, which would be to get a trail to Washoe Lake State Park. E-bike working group. So at the last joint meeting, we gave a presentation on that. Just for the benefit of the new members, we do have an e-bike working group, and we're working with Public Works. We have members from OSAC, from Parks and Rec Commission, Board of Supervisors, and RTC on that committee. And so we are looking at issues with regard to e-bikes. And one of the things that we did recommend is a moratorium on bike share and e-bike share and e-scooter programs, or businesses rather, until Carson City has an opportunity to develop an ordinance to regulate those businesses, because there are a lot of communities that have had problems with those types of share programs. For now, we are not recommending any immediate ordinances on e-bikes. We are right now recommending that we follow the state NRS, which allows e-bikes anywhere where traditional bikes are allowed, but it's kind of a wait and see and see how things go. One of the important components of sharing e-bikes on our trails is going to be our Share the Trail campaign, which is addressing really all the users that share our trails. A lot of times we find that, especially with increased usage on the trails, there's a lot of people that don't understand, for example, when you approach a horse from behind, that you need to communicate with the rider on that horse, and what do they want you to do, and how do they want you to make the approach. And so we again, in conjunction with CTA, they're helping us. They're been lending us their professional photographer, and we are working on a video that will go through various scenarios of how people should interact with each other on the trails. And then our ranger Curver is going to be doing the editing on that, and we expect that'll be a very professional video, and we'll have that available hopefully sometime this spring. Lastly, one item that is not on my list, but I did want to address, is the historic V&T trail. So RTC recently approved signage for the historic V&T trail through Carson City, and further, the Redevelopment Authority approved funding for those signs. So we will be we'll be working with Donna and Juan in the V&T committee to start placing the V&T logo on the trail as it goes through Carson City, which is very exciting to get that started and get it recognized. And I think once people start recognizing that, things start happening. So with that, I'll turn it over to anyone that may have a question.
Questions for Greg from the committee? Alan?
First, I just want to say that I'm really happy to see that WNC trail agreement. I do have a couple of concerns about that general area. There's just tons of social trails there. Large majority were never designed to be sustainable. So, I'm hoping that, we'll move ahead with actually getting a plan of what we're going to abandon and how we're going to have, good, sustainable trails up there. And the second point is that people are driving from the Ash Canyon water tank north up to the flat area, and they're just doing donuts and just tearing the land up on top of that area. I'm concerned about the vehicular access. And I'm not sure whether that's actually on city property or whether that's on WNC, but it's near that boundary.
Okay, a couple of things. Muscle Power, with regard to the first question, Muscle Power is applying for a small grant to actually, they're working with the Great Basin Institute to apply for a small grant through CWSD to do some work on the trails on WNC lands and adjacent properties. So hopefully they will get that. Regardless, we have identified the trails that we want to keep, and Muscle Part has committed to working on those and maintaining them. And then on the second item, with regard to the vehicular access, I'd like to talk to you afterwards about what exactly that is, because we do have signs that we've recently had made that we're ready to place. And so if you can help us with locations, that would be great.
Great, thank you. Other comments from the committee? Mark?
Greg, good report, thanks. I have a couple comments. One, on your interpretive displays, you ought to have a picture of the 140 homes that were going to go on the Silver Saddle before BLM bought it. That's just a comment. And then I love the metrics, and the more that you get involved with at Jen's level, taking it to the Board of Supervisors, the more metrics you have, the better off you're always going to be about presenting a story and a picture, because they understand numbers. And we actually had a counter that you put in the trail so you could tell if it was a mountain biker or a hiker. But I don't know if you've been able to do that or not, which was a big deal. And you have very heavy use on your trail. Having seen other metrics for other trails, these are pretty heavy use numbers that really speak well to this community and use of the trails. So I think your metrics are really important, which brought me to another point that it's a bigger point that the ranger who left here earlier could really tell the story, and he wasn't making a presentation tonight other than something basic. He probably has a patrol log so he could note all these things, the number of cars in the parking lots, his contacts for dogs, for lost kids, for illegal parking. All of that information is really important so you can show the story of what's really going on these trailheads and on the trails. And he's the face. He's out there every day, 8 hours a day, and the other rangers. So hopefully in the future, those guys can do a report and have a good patrol log to back up, because I noticed in the minutes from talking about dogs, they're asking him about the dogs. So it would be great if he had the metrics to show, I had 55 dog episodes over the year, and two human bites and dog fights. And so his patrol log becomes really important to show the story of these heavily used trails. These are heavily used. But we're unique in the world where about every household in here can be 5 minutes from a trail. Carson City's pretty privileged for getting out to the open space from their houses. So I wanted to make that comment. And then I wanted to make a comment on the aquatic trail. I just was involved with Alta, who I worked with for a while, for a signage on the Truckee River in all of Washoe County. And the fire department was heavily involved with that because they're the rescue team. And one of the things we put out was miles, so that if somebody gets in trouble, they get on their phone and they can say where they're at on the river. So that's a thought. You might have already thought about it, but the fire department plays a big role because they're the ones that go out and rescue. So we also had a specific signs for takeouts with specific wording, and I can show you some of that stuff, but you can get it on the internet too. So that's the comment I wanted to make with involving the fire department, if you haven't, but you might have already done it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark. Some good points. Donna, did you have anything?
Yeah, a couple things. One, follow up on Alan's comment. How are you going to keep the kids from Timberline from running their quads and their dirt bikes? Ran into two kids, I swear, they were not over 10 years old, with brand-new dirt bike and a brand-new quad running on the trails back there behind WNC just a month ago. I swear they weren't over 10 years old, by themselves, on brand-new equipment. And I know they came out of Timberline. And who put up the parking signs for, it's parking for Ash Canyon Trails between signs at Square Pond? There's room for about 3 cars.
So those signs were a requirement from the NDSL as we were applying for our license for the trails. They wanted designated parking for, I think it was 5 vehicles or something. So that's the reason for those signs. And the other question about how do we address intrusion by motorized vehicles on non-motorized trails, and that's a challenge that goes on forever. But one of the things we found is that as we do provide kiosk signage and trail signage, and we get more non-motorized users on the trails, they self-police. One of our concerns with the new Carson River trails, because those are easily accessible to motorized vehicles, and that was a concern that might be a problem, and it hasn't been, because those trails are filled with people that would certainly address motorized vehicles trying to share it with them. So I think that it's a combination of signage and then having this third ranger, having increased patrols will be a help. Having our sheriff's office providing some OHV patrols, that's a component. So there's a lot of components that go into trying to address that issue.
I have one other comment regarding the historic Virginia and Truckee Trail. You could now ride a bike from the Carson River to the Truckee River on the historic Virginia and Truckee Trail. We're working on getting signage all the way, and as soon as we do, it'll go onto the Rails to Trails website.
Great.
So, that's exciting.
Thank you, Donna.
So, but I can't wait to see the new logo signs go up in Carson City. But it'll all be the same logo sign for the whole trail across the 2 counties. And we've applied for a grant from the CWSD for our first study to put the bridge over the Carson River to Douglas County.
Great. Thank you. Susan, did you have any comments? Jerry or Margie, any comments?
Yes, I have one for Greg.
Go ahead.
Greg, I know you're sick of hearing me talk about the West Prison Hill section, but just today, if I looked out of my bedroom window, I saw somebody on an ATV that was 40 feet from my house on no road. Now, I don't know what you can do about this, but it's just a recurring event that needs to be addressed. I know you're doing what you can. You're waiting for somebody's approval to put up jack things and this, that, and the other. But I tell you, we need some presence out here that discourages people from just ruining the watershed and the erosion issues.
Yeah, I agreed, and I know we do have signage up there right now that that prohibits ATVs and dirt bikes. Obviously, in many cases, it's being ignored. We're working with to get the Section 106 completed for that area. In the meantime, Lindsay and I had the discussion. We're going to ask the State Historic Preservation Office if we can place some temporary signage, that jack rail fencing, which sits on the ground and doesn't require groundbreaking activities. So we're hoping that they'll let us at least start installing some of that, and hopefully we can get approval for that in the near future.
Thank you, Greg. Margie, any
Greg,
questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Can I say thank you first?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Greg, but I think we need a couple more signs up here.
Okay, we got them.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you, Margie. Any other comment? Jennifer?
Thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Greg, I wonder, can we talk to the sheriff's office and see, now that they have the transportation unit, and they promised us that they would help us with enforcement and open space and trails, and then they got this OH-free grant, I feel like it might be a good time to work with the sheriff's office, and maybe they can help in Jerry's neck of the woods too, for another presence, so it's not just on our park rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. We can discuss that with them. I don't know if they have the ATV unit yet. I don't know if the funds have been released for that yet, but they'll have it
They can borrow
soon.
ours.
Okay.
Okay.
One more.
Jerry, do you have another comment?
One more quick one. Jennifer, thanks for that idea. The trouble is that by the time this thing occurs and you make a phone call to the sheriff's department, it's just not, they can't react fast enough. But thank you. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree, but I think even if they're just up there more regularly, just having that presence sometimes helps.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from committee? Greg, great. We really appreciate your dedication and all you're doing with regard to trails. We just have a great team, and it's just exponential how the trails are becoming more used. And unfortunately, I think COVID has probably created more time for more kids with the ability to drive OHVs, motorcycles, and other things than we had before. But anyway,
Yeah.
anything else for Greg on this report? Okay.
I just have one quick thing.
Okay.
Is there any other locations for HOVs, ATVs, motorbikes other than South Prison Hill?
The BLM areas are, but nothing that we have under open space except Prison Hill, as I understand. Is that right, Greg?
Correct. That's the only area within open space. There's about 200 miles, from my understanding, there's about 200 miles of roads in the Pine Nuts, and there's BLM lands to the north as well. So there are many other areas, but that's the only one that's actually within Carson City. Also, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Chair, thank you for the compliment. But when it comes to trails, it is a team effort, and we have a great team. A lot of support within the department. We have support from Public Works. We have so many different volunteer organizations like Muscle Power that we work with. So it takes a lot of people to make it happen, and there's a lot of support community-wide for trails. So it's great to have that.
Thank you. And you know, you get a lot of support with a collaborative, appreciative effort, and I think you bring that across really well. And the other
It's
thing,
okay. It's okay.
is that Margie? Yep, you're muted, Margie.
I muted because my dogs had comments and I didn't think you'd want to hear them.
Do you have a comment yourself, or are you just speaking for the dog?
No, I was just trying to quiet the dogs and forgot that I was unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You know, I would bring out one thing, and that is, I think we as Open Space do have a responsibility to the OHV area at the south end of Prison Hill. It came as part of the acquisition from the BLM, and I think it's really important that we keep that in mind. It's a resource challenge every time you turn around, but I think we have a responsibility, and frankly, we have an OHV community in Carson, and I think we want to be careful to expect the best of them, but to continue to give them the opportunity to have the OHV area at Prison Hill properly signed, properly fenced, properly, environmentally addressed as best we can.
I agree, Bruce. That's something that I felt strongly about since I've been on the board is there are constituents too.
Okay, thank you, Margie. We have an opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody on the phone at this point?
We have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Next item, 11B, Open Space Advisory Committee report from the Open Space Manager. Lindsay.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. I believe I've spoken to most of these items throughout tonight, but I will just provide a couple updates here of things that I didn't speak to. So related to Old Buzzy's Ranch, staff have been in the process of developing a conservation plan for several years, working with consultants. This plan would cover everything from sustainable stocking rates for the grazing program out there to identifying areas of the ranch that are most productive as it relates to grazing, and also identifying a potential restoration plan should we have a reduction in the amount of irrigated water that we can apply to that property. So that's been an ongoing project for a long time for the new committee members. When we purchased that property, we were not able to purchase the water rights at the same time. And so there was a purchase and sale agreement developed with the sellers that basically said if they maintained the water rights that they owned and applied them to the landscape, then they would basically have exclusive rights to continue utilizing that property as far as grazing is concerned. And so that's kind of how we've managed to manage the property for the last several, decade, is utilizing their water rights and their ability to manage the property with their grazing program. There is a potential that, at some point in time, those water rights are not guaranteed. If those individuals want to take those water rights elsewhere, we would lose the opportunity to irrigate the property. They would also lose the ability to graze on the property. So with that, we've been trying to explore a variety of avenues to figure out how we can manage that and plan for the future. So this conservation plan is just one of those pieces of the puzzle. We have a couple of test plots out on the property as well to identify certain species, native species and introduced species that could be planted that would help if we get into a place where we need to restore certain parts of the ranch to a more non-irrigated state. So that's one portion of it. Kind of related to that, staff did submit an application to the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act grant last year for the acquisition of water rights out at Buzzy's Ranch. That would help us support approximately 150 acres of the 400-ish acre ranch. That water would be applied to the middle portion of the ranch, specifically where we have our Ducks Unlimited Wetland Enhancement Project, as well as our NDOT mitigation wetlands. So we will find out if funding was awarded on that project in September of this year. But as of right now, both projects submitted by Carson City have kind of gotten the green light to move through the various levels for recommendation for funding. So things are looking promising there, but we're not, we haven't been notified of award yet, but we're feeling hopeful. Also related to that, staff will be working with the DA's office to put together a pasture agreement. This will go with the conservation plan specifically, that will help us understand the rules and responsibilities and kind of who's responsible for what as it relates to managing that property with our current sort of leasee or grazing manager that we have out there. So that will be another project that will be forthcoming and will just help us better manage that facility in general. There is a section on this report for land acquisitions. We have been in the business of land management for a long time, so some of our land acquisitions that we have remaining are fairly long-term projects. So you'll see some of these kind of just as placeholders on this report. As we have updates, I will update them, but a lot of times you may see no updates for previous report, and that's just because a lot of these acquisitions are going to be a long game. But 2 updates here. So related to Clear Creek, staff have been looking into the potential to acquire approximately 100 acres in the Clear Creek area for some time. That area is owned by the state of Nevada. So far, in terms of steps moving forward on that project is we are paying for an appraisal to be conducted on that property, so we have a better understanding of the overall cost and what that would mean for open space. So that appraisal got delayed by COVID, but is currently underway. So that will be forthcoming in this year. Other land acquisitions to speak of, the Ham property acquisition or the Eagle View open space that was funded through Land and Water Conservation Fund. We did go ahead and get approval to extend that to December 2021. The only item that is outstanding related to that project is finalizing the Marlette waterline easement. And we are working with State Lands and Public Works to finalize that easement, but it is taking some time and is sort of wrapped up with some other projects that we have going with Division of State Lands. But those discussions have been ongoing, and we feel confident that we'll be able to finalize that before December 2021 deadline. I believe everything else in here I have spoken to, but I also did want to mention that this open space manager report is meant to give updates throughout open space, including the Carson River. And in the past, we used to have 2 staff reports that were dedicated to open space updates, one for the Carson River and one for elsewhere. We did decide to go ahead and combine those 2 just to make it a little easier on staff so that we're not filling out another staff report. This report represents updates basically from December when we had our joint meeting. So from December to February, we don't have a whole lot of activities going on the river. But I wanted to let the committee know that, the river will continue to be captured. And so I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add a section. And even if we don't have updates related to the river this particular time, I'll just put no updates so that we make sure that we're capturing that and ensuring that the tenets of the Carson River Advisory Committee are still being met under OSAC. And I'll also mention that the final page does include events. These are sort of department-wide events. Not all of them are specific to open space, but since there's such a limited amount of things that we can do with our time, I wanted to share with the committee the different opportunities that are being presented throughout our department. We do moonlight hikes every month. Our recreation division has been putting together some snowshoe hikes that have been really popular. And we just continue to try to organize COVID-safe events where possible. So just wanted to highlight and get some of those on your radar for the future as well. So with that, I will take any questions from the committee.
Questions for Lindsay? Mark?
It's getting late, but this is your chance to shine here. The first thing I want to mention is that you talked about the water at Buzzy's, and I know that from the beginning that was a concern. So I always keep hoping, and I always thought Bruce was going to solve this and find the water somewhere to get to Silver Saddle, but you could always put the pipeline in the ditch because the sewer water gets to Empire. You just pump the water up the creek and you don't have to dig it or nothing. You just stick it in the bottom of the ditch and get them affluent, because I think that's going to be the best choice. Getting water in Nevada is not an easy thing to do on a river that's over allocated. So let's cross our fingers, because that's critical that that pasture stay green, and that was from the day one. There was never a second that people didn't say, we want that green. It was disappointing to watch some of it go fallow, but then it came back green again. And so I'm glad to see you're working on a cattle plan, because that's a critical part of it. You can't manage a pasture unless you have some livestock on it normally, unless we're gonna farm alfalfa or Jen's favorite crop that I won't bring up. So I wanted to say that, and then I wanted to ask a question. One of the pieces of property that we were working on with Mayor Bob was, and I can't remember the name of the social group that owns that on Ash Creek. What? The Masons? It wasn't on the list, so I was hoping it didn't fall off or something, because supposedly they were friendly at the beginning, but maybe they're not anymore.
Greg, do you think you could speak to that, please?
Sure. I have. It's been probably a couple of years now since I've spoken with the Masons, and I know that at that time their desire was to sell the piece of property at the highest. They wanted to get the most for it they could, so they could build a new lodge. And I believe I know that at least a few months ago it was for sale for a value that probably exceeded. I'm sure it exceeded the appraised value. So I don't know that it's necessarily available to open space very easily at this time.
So is that trail essentially is a trespass then? That's a high liability, because it's a pretty talented kind of a DH, you call those, a downhill.
It is.
For experienced riders. Is that still on there?
The trail exists. It's a user-built trail. And we haven't been successful in being able to get an easement for that. We, with the signage that Muscle Power is placing right now, we had them, or we created a sign that says where the open space, where the public property ends, and so this is the trail. This is the end of the trail. And then we're also going to place a sign. There's a jump there.
Yeah, I know.
And we're just going to place a sign there that says that it's a danger. So, but it's not ours to manage.
Well, I know. Well, it's like hopefully nothing ever comes out of that, since it was in how it was built, but that's okay. One of the things I know that Lindsay's learned, that personal relationships and property purchases is a huge deal. And you have to really treat them kind, because it can take years for this to happen. And it's really hard for people to understand why it could take so long to sell their property and cut that final check to them. So I applaud you for that and your skills to work with all these people constantly for these property, so that we get a good relationship with them and keep that and keep their patience, so we don't lose them. I was working on a piece of property at Lake Tahoe where the Ponderosa Ranch was, that was supposed to be sold to all these agencies, and we all lined up, the county, the NDOT, the feds, the Rim Trail was all lined up, and then the landowner sold it to Duffield in the last day before closing. So that was probably because of the bureaucracy. It took 3 years to come up with a plan to that many agencies to buy property. So I applaud you in that effort, knowing how difficult that is to make those purchases and to stay with those groups. So thank you for your report. It was good, and actually it was a little bit of duplication, but you covered it well to say why it was. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mark. Donna?
One quick question. Where's the hemp issue on Buzzy's Ranch right now?
Ben, do you want to take that one if you're still there?
Of course, I'm still here. Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record. So we're currently in what's called the discovery process in the litigation. So they filed a complaint. We filed an answer and a counterclaim. And right now we're going through discovery, where it's like an exchange of documents. and then it'll proceed from there.
Thank you, Ben. Any other questions, Donna? Okay. Alan?
I was just wondering, are there any opportunities for some grant money for Clear Creek, federal, state, whatever, private, whatever? Or do you have some thoughts on that?
That's a great question. So, even though we don't have a value for the property, staff have already evaluated that and gone down the route of actually applying for funding. So, staff put together an application to the Forest Legacy, thank you, the Forest Legacy program. And it was evaluated through their channels and actually went all the way up to the top as far as you could go in terms of evaluation. And it was determined that because the Clear Creek property used to be owned by the Forest Service and then was given for free to Nevada Division of State Lands, basically the Forest Legacy program, and this would apply to other federal programs as well, they basically said, well, we're not going to utilize federal funding on something that was once owned by the federal government and was given away for free. Which then brings us to only being able to utilize state funding that doesn't have a federal pass-through, which is pretty limited if it exists at all. So we are still looking at that, evaluating that. The appraisal will help, but we are sort of between a rock and a hard place as far as assistance and funding comes.
Okay. Susan?
Sorry, Alan prompted this question, so it's his fault. Clear Creek has a long history of access up the old Clear Creek Highway owned by part Carson City, by Douglas. NDOT has a section of it. Is there access to this property, or would you have to go through the interchange up there, or would you have to go up the road?
We'll have Mark help you if you want.
There we go. I got it. All right. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So there is access to the property at Golf Club Drive, right at that sort of underpass is where the access would be. That access right now isn't the best from a safety perspective, from a trail use perspective, vehicles entering and exiting. So there are other parts of the property that could potentially be utilized for trailhead access, parking, and all of that. So I think at this point, we're sort of waiting for the appraisal to come back so that we can understand what the potential ask is.
Okay, anything else, Susan? Okay. Jerry, did you have any comments or questions?
No, sir.
Okay, Margie, anything from you?
I'm good. I've been working. I remember back in the olden days, in the early 2000s, when we were trying to solve the Clear Creek problem. I've got no comments.
You just made one. Okay. Oh, sure, Mark.
There it goes. Has the Nevada Land Trust given you any idea maybe how they could come up and help you with some funding for that? I figured they had, but they're the local one that's been very successful in helping with that.
Yeah, so the Nevada Land Trust is involved in this whole process. They've been helping to facilitate the appraisal and things like that. They do have some creative ideas in mind once we receive the appraisal back of potential options. So we're definitely talking about that.
Great. Good report. Thanks, Lindsay. Is there any public comment still out there?
We do have one caller for public comment. Caller, when I unmute you here with the two beeps, please proceed with your comment.
No comment, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the informational report. The next one is our director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Lindsay and Greg and Jared and the open space team. I'm always in awe of them. I mean, just looking at the annual report and the work plan, I mean, we have the most ambitious, amazing staff on the planet. And I just wanted to thank them for all their hard work. I mean, I know it's a long meeting, but it's a really, really amazing group of people. And I just wanted to thank them for all their hard work. So just a couple quick updates. I know it's getting late, so you'll probably want to get out of here. The lands bill, unfortunately, it sort of died at the last congressional session. For those new members, we tried to do a technical correction lands bill at Congress to try to resolve some outstanding issues with BLM land and the city land. And unfortunately, that didn't really fare so well, but we have been talking to Senator Rosen's office, and she's interested in possibly reintroducing that. Because we did get so far. We literally got to like the 5-yard line and just didn't quite make it. So we're going to keep pushing ahead. And if there's an opportunity, Greg and Lindsay have identified some other things that we might have forgotten. So if we can, we'll have to go back to the Board of Supervisors to add that language, but might want to pursue some other stuff. So we're still plugging away and trying. And then, COVID's been hard on the staff. We have no inmates still. We're down 20 full-time equivalent staff because of that. So it's been hard throughout the department, but open space has been great, pitching in wherever. All the staff have just sort of been all hands on deck with snowstorms and you name it. But I just really appreciate the staff and the public for just being patient with us. So Lindsay mentioned the senior natural resource specialist position. She'll be interviewing in the next couple of weeks to get someone hopefully selected for that. John's working on selecting the park ranger vacancy as well. As he said, he had 167 applicants and he's down to 2. So they must be 2 amazing people. I can just say that. So that's a really great recruitment. I do just want you to think before the next board meeting is about dog use in parks. And I'll send a link to the new members about the presentation we had at the joint meeting in December. It was really helpful. Our senior ranger, John Costello, did a great presentation on dog use in parks and open space and the challenges we face with dog use. And I really want to have a good conversation at our next meeting about what you would like to see in open space as far as guidelines and recommendations. So when we have our joint meeting in June, we can really move forward with some solid recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on how we want to handle that. So just a reminder that we haven't forgotten about that. We're going to keep that kind of on the forefront of our minds and have a good discussion the next meeting. And then if you have any questions on the Board of Supervisors actions in your packet or anything else, just let me know.
Thanks, Jennifer. Any questions for Jen? A little bit off topic. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
I'm a little confused. I thought this was the Carson City Board of Supervisors 2021 agenda items. Am I in the wrong place here on our agenda?
We're on 11C
It's
right
11C, Jerry, on the 3rd page.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jennifer, just a brief aside, the Parks and Rec staff particularly and their assistance at the senior center has been a tremendous benefit. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Do we have any public on the phone?
No, Bruce, hold on.
Oh.
I'm on 11C. It says Carson City Board of Supervisors items 2021.
Right.
Am I on the right page here or did I get something wrong?
No, that's a part of this, what we're just talking about, Jerry. So if you have something, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right page. I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any public on the telephone at this point?
We do have the one caller on the line.
Okay.
Caller, if you have any comments, please make them after the 2 beeps.
No comment, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then read this again, Bruce. I do have a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
I mean, I saw some stuff about purchasing and contracts. sodium hydrochloride, we didn't even discuss this. Why is it on our agenda if we're not going to discuss it?
Thank you, Jerry. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So every time we meet, I give you, for the entire department, any actions that we had at the Board of Supervisors. That item was for the Recreation Division, so our sodium hypochlorite contract that is for the, one of the chemicals for the swimming pool. So that's what's related to that item.
And why does open space care about that?
I just give you all actions for the entire department. Sometimes you might have all items that are open space and some they might have other parts of the department, but just to keep you updated on what the department's bringing forward to the board.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments on Jennifer's report? Okay, I had asked earlier that we adjust agenda item number 5, which was the election of officers. I am going to be resigning from the committee, and I wanted to not only let the committee know, and I guess one possibility is to go forward with the election of officers. Another possibility might be to make that as an agenda item for next time. But I didn't want to have the committee in a position of thinking that I might be available should the committee so request to continue in my position as chairman. I'm, without getting into a lot of detail, I'm concerned that our firm, and me in particular, has done work for Carson City for many, many years in water rights, in resources, in initiating the sheep program, and a lot of other things. And I'm concerned that the Board of Supervisors and the current Carson City ordinances create a potential conflict, at least in the members' minds of potentially some of the board. And I don't want to put this committee, our firm, or the Board of Supervisors in a bad position. I've been on the committee a long time. I've really appreciated that, and I'm very proud of what the committee has done. But I will be submitting a resignation to the Board of Supervisors after this meeting. So with that, I guess I would leave it with the committee as to how you'd like to handle the election of officers at this point. And thank you for your indulgence in letting me bring it to the end of the meeting.
I have something to say.
Jerry.
Bruce, is there no situation which you would reconsider?
Jerry, I've got some real concerns over not only the Open Space Committee and the reappointments, but also the Utility Finance Oversight Committee, where the issue was reinforced in my mind with an interpretation that the city ordinance would preclude my being appointed or reappointed to that committee. And so I really think it's a conflict with the ordinance, and what I think is most important for Carson City to try to, transparency is a wonderful thing, and I have no problem with it. I don't see it as an item for transparency. I see it as an item for integrity, commitment to the city, and I think it's really unfortunate that the ordinance creates a situation where people who are qualified but are otherwise doing things for Carson City are effectively eliminated from participating in their community or bringing their skills or expertise or interests to a committee like this. And there are a lot of committees, where people who do work or their firms do work for Carson City, whether you're talking about Parks and Rec or Regional Transportation or who knows, any open space, any of those. So I really feel like the ordinance creates a situation, Jerry, where I really am not in a position where I think it's appropriate for me to stay on.
Bruce, the committee is losing a valuable resource. I'm sorry to hear about this.
Well, I had told the board when they reappointed me a year or so ago that I would not ask for a reappointment after that. And this has come up in between, and I really feel it's not a good situation the way it currently is and the way it's currently being administered. And so I think the best thing is for me to resign my position, let somebody else come to the committee. There are a lot of folks interested. There were some really good applicants for the position. That was just positions that were just vacated, and I know Jeremy Hall would probably continue to have an interest if there was an opening. And so, thank you, Margie, but I think probably that's the best move given the circumstances as they are now.
Well, Bruce, I can say that you've given a lot to this committee over the years and led us a long way. And we can thank you for that.
Well,
But I
thank
do think that we cannot go without a chairman while we wait for your replacement to come on board. I think we need to vote for a chairman. And I'd like to nominate Alan, put him on the spot.
Okay, we have a nomination. We probably need a second in order to have some further discussion if there are other committee members that had anything they wanted to discuss.
I'll second Alan.
Okay, now is there other discussion regarding the committee or the agenda item?
My resignation will be forthcoming.
No, Jerry. With that, then,
No.
Susan, I'm sorry.
Guess just, would you be willing to accept it? Okay.
Yeah, what a concept. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. And I will vote aye as my last official vote. And Alan, it's yours.
Well, Bruce, I'm really kind of irritated with you because you're going to make my life impossible to do anywhere near as good a job as you have. So I would join with the rest of the members in expressing the feeling that we're losing a lot. And I hope the members will be patient with me as I stumble along here. It's what my first official act would be to adjourn the meeting practically. But I think we do need a vice chair. And so do we have anyone who would either like to nominate or raise their hand?
I nominate Donna Iverson.
I heard two nominations, one for Mark and one for Donna. I think we ought to ask both of them whether they are interested.
This is my first meeting, and I respect senior people that have been on this committee for a long time, so I would gladly pull my name for Donna if she wants it. So we don't have a vote here.
Are you interested, Margie?
I'm honestly, I'm struggling with even being a member right now. I don't want to leave the committee, but I also have feelings and personal things are going along as well. So I would love for you to be vice chair. I think you'd be an excellent vice chair, Donna. You have a lot of experience with muscle power.
And everything else you've done for the parks and for the trail systems, by the way.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, I guess we need a motion to nominate Donna for vice chair. Jerry, did you make the motion?
To Donna Iverson for the vice chair of the Open Space Committee for Carson City.
And I second that motion.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Aye.
congratulations, Donna. Okay, so I think we're to members' announcements. Does there anybody have anything we'd like to bring forward?
Yes, I'm resigning from this commission tonight.
No response to that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to follow up and thank Lindsay for talking about the Carson River, because when we had a sit down, I specifically talked about the fact that I was heavily involved with crack for a long time, and I was one of the parties who had crack dissolved because I felt they were overworking staff, and I was one of the vocal people that worked with the Board of Supervisors to have crack dissolved, but there was a commitment made that crack would not disappear in open space, and I didn't see it. It's there. It's all the way through the report. So I don't want to create a bunch of work, but I was really pleased when you said that, and I wanted to make sure I said thank you for that. And if Dan Graytack is listening, he'll be very thankful for that too. And then the announcement for the watershed thing, I was hoping you were going to do that, which is a Carson River thing. I don't have the details, which is part of the responsibility. And other than that, I'm done. And I'm glad to see the new officers were here and were willing to take the role. Thank you very much. And Bruce, I'm really sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My first meeting, and I just really appreciate the information. I appreciate the passion that was expressed by all of the members. Bruce, I'm very sorry to hear that. I could tell and know that you have touched a lot, as well as our new officers and other members. So I do appreciate the information that you all provided in making me feel very welcome. That Greg was right with the numbers, that I run a lot of these trails or ride mountain bikes, and just seeing people on them, and to me, a healthy community is a positive. It's less impacts in indirect impacts. It's tired, but it's to move. Motion is lotion, and so being able to move on our facilities is awesome and very braggable, and so I do. So thank you all for what you do. Thank you.
Anyone else have any announcement? Bruce, yes.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you to everybody, all the committee members, for your support and your gracious compliments and comments. I've enjoyed very much my time with the committee, and I feel very good about our two new members and their commitment and their ability to bring strength to the committee. And I'm sorry I won't have a chance to work with you a little bit more closely, but I've enjoyed my time with all of you, and I really do appreciate the staff and the commitment that we see there. So, and I will still be around, and I fully intend to continue to try to work on the water issues and other things that I can potentially help with. So, thank you very much.
Not seeing any other comments from the members. I guess we can open it for public comments on any matter not specifically included on this agenda. Do we have anyone?
We have no callers on the line at this time.
No caller from the line, okay. Then future agenda items. Do any of the members have anything that they would like included in the next agenda?
This is Margie. The concerns that I have about naming open space properties is on the April agenda, and I'm looking forward to that.
You bet. Okay. All right. So not hearing any other, I guess we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone, and really glad to see that we've got two new, very strong members of the committee. So welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record. I just wanted to make clear that there was no more further public comment at the end.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Just because the last two got swapped, so thank you. Have a good
Okay.
night, everyone.
Yeah.